Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Frayed Truths in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 36. Kakashi. Kakashi is slipping into a doze when he hears the voice call his name. Naruto is passed out against him, and Kakashi startles, causing the boy to nearly slip to the floor. Kakashi steadies himself quickly. Naruto continues to sleep, half in his own chair and half in Kakashi's lap. Kakashi turns his head, blinking away the vestiges of sleep. There's a blur of green, a shape darting down the hospital hallway, and suddenly Guy is skidding to a stop in front of him. I came as soon as I heard, he proclaims. Are you alright, my eternal rival? Naruto shifts slightly, his face twitching. Kakashi shoots his friend a sharp look. Keep it down. You're in a hospital. Noticing the dirty look a nurse down the hall is shooting him, Guy becomes instantly sheepish. He lowers his voice a few octaves. What happened? I heard you came back here with Itachi Uchiha. He lowers his voice to a whisper when he speaks the name, as if saying it will somehow invoke him. Kakashi resists rolling his eyes, arching an eyebrow. That news spread fast. Who did you hear it from? Radu. He said Genma saw you come through the gates. Kakashi nods. He glances anxiously at the clock on the wall. It's been over 3 hours. Guy looks from him to the boy draped over him, his eyes broadcasting his worry. Kakashi, is everyone okay? You weren't attacked by him again, were you? Kakashi pulls his gaze from the clock, shaking his head. It wasn't Itachi. It was Orochimaru. Orochimaru. Guy's gaze hardens immediately when he hears the name of the rogue Sunin. He lifts Naruto's feet, sitting in the chair next to Kakashi. Tell me everything. Kakashi's shoulders drop, a sigh of pure exhaustion escaping him. He begins to explain, feeling the heavy weight pressing down on him as he does. He runs his fingers through his student's bright hair, allowing his breathing to soothe him as he talks. Orochimaru is dead? Guy asks him once he finishes. I mean, really dead? You're sure? Kakashi winces at the memory of Naruto's bloody teeth, the mangled corpse beneath him. Even if Naruto didn't kill him, Itachi burned his body completely. He's ashes. There's a surge of vindication in Guy's eyes. He held great respect for Sarutobi, and is glad to hear of his killer's demise. After learning the truth of the Uchiha clan's downfall, Kakashi's feelings for the third aren't as clear, but he's still equally relieved to know Orochimaru is gone. He can't come after Sasuke any longer. Kakashi looks down the hall, where he knows 2 surgeries are being performed behind closed doors. He swallows down the worry that spikes sharply in his stomach, looking down at the boy in his lap. Naruto resembles Minato so closely. Even after months as his sensei, just looking at him still stops Kakashi's heart. It's been a long time since he's felt so fiercely protective of anyone, and his chest constricts at the knowledge of how badly he's failed him, failed all 3 of them. Guy frowns at him, reading his expression easily. Oh no. Not that face. Kakashi, don't. Don't what? Blame yourself. You're making the face you make when you're doing that. I hate that face. Kakashi's jaw clenches. If I had gotten there sooner. Kakashi, you have to stop doing this. Not everything is your fault. This wasn't your fault. Beneath the mask, his lips pull into a scowl. Don't try to tell me that. You weren't even there. They're my students. My responsibility. You did everything you could to keep them safe. Not enough. Guy looks at him and sighs in defeat. Why are you like this? He mutters, shaking his head. Kakashi looks down at Naruto, at the dirt and blood staining his hair and clothes. There's still a hint of red on his lips as well. Kakashi's chest churns, feeling sick. Once again, he glances down the empty corridor. Tsunade still hasn't emerged. So, what's the deal with Itachi, then? Guy asks him. He helped you bring Sasuke here and then, what? Just turned himself in. Kakashi's face goes blank in a way that his rival is extremely familiar with. I can't discuss Itachi with you. Classified, huh? Guy sighs. You know, it really burns me up inside when you act so cool. You're colder than ice, Kakashi. Guy says his name in that strange way he always does, where he puts extreme emphasis on each syllable, turning it into 3 separate words instead of 1. Kakashi rolls his eyes and doesn't respond. His friend's voice, inappropriately loud in the hospital hallway, is strangely soothing. A door down the hall swings open. Kakashi straightens immediately, his heart leaping when Tsunade is the one to step out. She walks briskly toward them, her heels clacking on the marble floor. How did it go? Kakashi asks as soon as she stops in front of them. Sakura is still in surgery, Tsunade says. We're still trying to flush the last traces of the venom from her system. But her life is out of danger. The eye transplant was successful, both Itaki and Sasuke are still sedated, and I've placed them in separate rooms. Kakashi's relief is like a wave crashing over him. His hands shake. They're both going to be okay. The poison that entered Sakura's bloodstream ate away at her chakra network, corroded it. We don't yet know if there will be any permanent damage. But the important thing is that they're both going to live. Kakashi feels something inside him ease, as if he's been holding his breath this whole time. He can't be worried about any lingering damage, not when he was so terrified for their lives only a moment before. His students are going to live, whatever else they can deal with. Despite the good news, Tsunade's face is still grim. Kakashi wonders how she's taking Orochimaru's death. He was a former teammate and friend, after all, despite the twisted man he grew into. Kakashi wonders if she grieves. Guy slings an arm around Kakashi's shoulders. There. Did you hear that? They'll be fine. The vigorous flames of youth burn brightly in their blood. Guy, Tsunade chides. This is a hospital. Stop shouting. Guy winces. Sorry, Godame-sama. Can I see them? Kakashi asks. Sasuke's out of surgery. He'll be unconscious for a while longer, but you can still see him if you want to. Kakashi nods. He looks down at Naruto, who is still drooling on his lap, then to Guy. Could you? Of course, Guy agrees. I'll stay with him. You go. Thank you. Guy smiles brightly. Of course. An eternal rival is always there when you need him. Guy, hospital. Oh, right, sorry. Itaka wakes up to complete darkness. He doesn't panic, he has more self-control than that. The feeling tries to curl around his heart, but he forces himself to stay calm. He quells his racing heartbeat, analyzing the situation. He stretches out his senses. There's someone else with him, their chakra brushes against him. He can't open his eyes, and there's something that feels like metal digging into his right wrist. The room smells of ammonia. Hospital. Itaki realizes. Everything comes back to him, Kisame, Orochimaru, Sasuke. He remembers his brother, eyes closed and cheeks stained with blood. He remembers his own desperate offer, give him my eyes. Uchiha, the person in the room with him says. Itaki's heart jumps slightly, but he doesn't visibly startle. The voice belongs to the Godame. Slowly, very aware of how vulnerable he is, he sits up on the hospital bed. His muscles are lethargic, the sedative still lingering in his veins. He rids his face of all emotions, facing the direction her voice came from. There's a dull ache behind his eyelids, and the bandages itch against his skin. How do you feel? Tsunade asks. Tired, is Itaka's immediate answer. He struggles to shake off the remnants of the drug, disliking his senses being so dulled now that he is without his most important one. I feel fine, he says, twisting the wrist that's cuffed to the bed so the metal isn't digging into his skin quite so painfully. Did the transplant work? Your brother is resting comfortably. The surgery seemed to be successful, though we won't know for sure until he wakes up. Itaki hides his rush of relief, but something in him eases when he hears the words. He can breathe easier. Still, he remains alert where he sits. His muscles remain tensed. He can't drop his guard in these circumstances, not when his chakra is so low and he's surrounded on all sides by darkness. He's helpless, in a way he's rarely felt. The bandages keeping his eyelids closed are attempting to trick him. It's so easy to believe that if he takes them off, he'll be able to see again. But Itaka can tell that the darkness is deeper than that. The bandages aren't preventing light from reaching his eyes are gone. Itaka doesn't regret his decision. But there's still a bone-deep fear inside him as he comes to fully realize what he's done. What now? He's back in Konoha, the home he ran from years ago with the blood of his clan staining his uniform. There are people who know the truth now, and the Akatsuki have declared him a traitor. If Kisame did as he asked him, they might even believe him to be dead. All of his plans, now in shambles at his feet. Everything he's done, all the pain he's caused Sasuke, has all been for nothing. You're nothing to me. There was no reason for those words now. Heels clack on the floor in front of him. The rustle of clothing. Then there's a slight scraping sound, a chair being pulled across the floor. When Tsunade speaks again, her voice is closer. I assume you're wondering what's going to happen to you now. Honestly, I don't know. I need you to explain your situation to me. Itaka frowns. I thought you already knew the truth. I know about the coup d'état. The orders you were given. But the information came from a source I would be foolish to trust, and I still only have some of the story. I need to know everything, and I need to hear it from you. That's the only way I can begin to move forward with this. Itaka doesn't immediately respond. His throat feels tight. He knows speaking the truth is his only option now. He's backed himself into a corner, and snared himself in the same threads he tried to use to manipulate everyone else. But after over 5 years of holding the truth behind his teeth, he isn't sure he even knows how to say it out loud. It was a mission given the highest degree of classification. And Itaka knows it's ridiculous, since it's the Hokage herself ordering him, but speaking of it feels like betraying Konoha. Your only path left is forward, Itaka reminds himself, words Shisui said to him on more than one occasion. There's nothing behind you now. Itaka takes a quiet breath. He wipes his face of emotion, then raises his chin, facing in the direction he believes Tsunade to be sitting in. After the Nine Tails attack, he begins haltingly, treatment of the Uchiha changed. Because the Sharingan can control a tailed beast, the village grew suspicious that the Uchiha were behind it. Danzo and the other elders believed it was a plot too. And so, for the first time, Itaka speaks all of his secrets out loud. He bares his soul, but he does it calmly, emotionlessly. He tells the story like a mission report, telling only the facts and keeping his own feelings and biases out. His expression remains impassive as he speaks of the systematic slaughter, his voice level. He's had a lot of practice these 5 years in the art of hiding his emotions. But it's still hard. Tsunade doesn't interrupt him. He's glad for this. It's easy for him to keep going once he's started, and he doesn't think he'd be able to keep up the mask so flawlessly if he kept being stopped. Once he's finished, his voice dries up. He lowers his head, feeling faint tremors going through his hands. Simply a side effect of exhaustion, clearly. He hopes they aren't visible. Tsunade doesn't speak for a long time, and it makes Itaka anxious. He hates that he can't read her expression. He's so used to being able to tell every thought going through someone's head, simply by reading their body language. Now there is only darkness, and he can't tell anything. It's incredibly frustrating. His eyes have always been his greatest weapon, and not just because of the Sharingan. So it was Danzo who gave you your orders? Tsunade asks him. He's the one who proposed the plan to you, not Sarutobi. Itaka swallows at the memory of the ultimatum, to die with his clan, or to stain his own hands and save his little brother. Yes. But the Sandaime would have given the order eventually, if he hadn't. The Uchiha had him backed into a corner. Itaka isn't sure why he's bothering to defend Danzo. The man certainly doesn't deserve it. Force of habit, he supposes. Be that as it may, Tsunade says, Danzo still acted without the Hokage's authority. And he purposely sabotaged your attempts at a peaceful resolution. An emotion tightens in Itaka's chest. Shisui slowly tipping backward. I don't know if Kota Amatsukami would have worked, he admits. But Danzo made the massacre the only option. He wanted the Uchiha clan gone. He still does. And that's why you asked the Sandaime to protect Sasuke. Itaka nods. And you were never loyal to the Akatsuki. No, Itaka says. He thinks he's been more honest in this conversation than he's been since he was 7. I was a spy from the beginning. Madara made an agreement with me to not harm the village so long as I was among their ranks. I could make sure that agreement was kept. Apprehension flickers in his chest as he says the words. Now that he's no longer in the Akatsuki, what's to stop the organization from moving on Konoha? If Madara doesn't buy him being dead, he'll assume Itaka gave up information. It'll cause him to accelerate his plans. Madara, Tsunade says. Her voice has changed, a steely tone entering it. That's something else we need to discuss. Sasuke doesn't remember what he dreams about. But when he wakes up, he has a faint memory of his mother's smile, the sound of her soft laughter echoing in his head. He returns to consciousness slowly, a heavy exhaustion weighing him down. With difficulty, he attempts to pry his eyes open, only to find that he can't. He panics, his heartbeat racing. He gasps, images flashing behind his eyes. Sakura on the ground, Naruto surrounded by a cloud of red chakra, Orochimaru pinning him. No. Orochimaru's voice next to his ear, hissing the words "don't fight." His hand wrapping around the kunai, an explosion of white-hot pain behind his eyes. Orochimaru screaming. Sasuke bolts upright with a gasp, desperation and panic rushing through him. Orochimaru is here, and he's going to kill him. He's going to kill Naruto and Sakura. He has to stop him. Sasuke reaches up, clawing desperately at the bandages on his face. No, no, no. There are hands suddenly on him, trying to pull back his arms, and Sasuke flinches, fighting to get away. Fear chokes him, rising up his throat, and he can't see, he can't breathe. Get off. Sasuke. Stop. Sasuke freezes immediately. He knows that voice. The moment he recognizes it, he feels something inside of him ease, his blind panic slowly ebbing. Kakashi. It's definitely Kakashi. Not just his voice, but something about his presence just feels familiar. It feels safe, the way Itaka used to feel, and Sasuke allows his hands to be gently lowered to his lap. You're okay, Kakashi says. You're safe. Everyone is safe. Slowly, his other senses begin to compensate for his lack of sight. The sharp smell of antiseptic reaches his nose. He hears the rhythmic beeping of hospital machinery. Kakashi's hands are around his wrists, and after a moment, he slowly releases them. Everything is coming back to him now, but most of it is still a blur of fear and pain and panic. He remembers the pure terror he felt, the desperation as Orochimaru's snakes wrapped around him. As yellow eyes filled his vision. As his fingers wrapped around the handle of the kunai. He remembers pink hair and pale skin. Naruto yelling his name. His breath catches. Naruto and Sakura. Everyone is safe, Kakashi repeats, and oh right, he did say that. Sakura needed surgery, but she's going to be okay. Orochimaru is dead. Sasuke sits there for a moment, darkness blocking out his sensei's face. It takes a moment for the words to process, to penetrate his brain. His hand is shaking as he reaches up to grip his shoulder, where the curse mark is located. He's dead. Yes. How? There's a slight pause before Kakashi responds. That's complicated. And something that we can discuss more later. The important thing is that he's gone. Sasuke frowns. It doesn't sit right with him that Kakashi isn't giving him an answer. He thinks back to Orochimaru pinning him and has a very faint memory Naruto growling, his teeth lengthened into fangs and surrounded by a dark chakra. I didn't imagine that, did I? The memory is hazy. Sasuke grimaces, bringing up a hand to the bandages over his eyes. He can feel the sharp sting of the wound he inflicted on himself, but he can also move his eyes behind his eyelids. They don't feel damaged. My eyes, Sasuke says shakily. How? Another pause. Sasuke hates this one even worse than the last. It feels strangely foreboding. Tsunade performed a transplant. You'll need to keep those bandages on for a while before we can be sure if it worked. A transplant? Who? Itaka. There's a buzzing in his ears. The name rings in his head, his hand still touching the bandages in his face. Itaka, Itaka, Itaka. His brain feels like it's glitching. Suzuki feels his lips move, feeling cold and numb, but he isn't sure what he says. He can't see Kakashi's face, but there's a soft touch to his arm, a hand covering his. Suzuki. Suzuki flinches, yanking his hand away. His head spins, and he doesn't understand. Itake, why was he even here? Why would he? Orochimaru's words come back to him suddenly, like a punch, like a hurricane. He did not kill your clan to test his strength. He did it because he was ordered to. By Konoha. There's no air in his lungs. The tale Orochimaru spun comes back to him all at once. The claim of the massacre being a mission that Itake was ordered that he left him alive because he loved him. Your older brother has been lying to you. As has everyone else around you. His head is so loud he can't think. His entire body is shaking. Did you know? He asks, his voice cracking. What? Kakashi says, confusion in his voice. No what? Did you know Itake was ordered to kill the clan? Did you know it was a mission? He feels Kakashi tense on the bed in front of him. And that's all the confirmation he needs that it's true, that all of it is true. He feels like he's drowning. Like he's fallen into a lake, but his arms and legs are all tangled up, so all he can do is flail helplessly. The world fades out, his ears ringing. He can't breathe. It's true. What Orochimaru said about Itake, it's true. His clan was ordered killed by his brother, and Kakashi knew. He knew when Suzuki came to his apartment shaking apart, soaked in rain. He knew when he let Suzuki stay the night. He knew when Suzuki screamed at Naruto, the words "I love him" ripped from his throat, all of his anguish bared in on display. He knew later, as they walked together, as he tried to comfort him. Kakashi saw how much his love for his parents' killer was tearing him apart. He saw how much it was killing him. But it wasn't real, Suzuki had said, tears stinging at his eyes. He never cared. All of it was just pretend. Kakashi had listened to him say those things, had witnessed how much that it hurt. And he said nothing. Suzuki is intimately familiar with the feeling of betrayal. There's nothing quite like it. It's like there's a noose around your neck and the floor has dropped out from under you, and the only purchase your feet can find is a bed of glowing coals. So the soles of your feet blister and burn while you choke, and all you can think is, how could I be so stupid as to let myself trust someone again? Suzuki didn't realize he had grown to trust Kakashi. Not until this moment, when he feels that trust shatter. How? Kakashi asks, and Suzuki can't see his expression, but he can read the distress in his voice. Orochimaru. Kakashi attempts to reach for him, his hands covering his students. Suzuki, let me explain. You knew, Suzuki snarls. He feels something fracture in his chest. You knew, and you didn't tell me. You comforted me, how could you? I haven't known for that long, only a few days. Suzuki, please. Suzuki is ripping out of his hold, tearing the four violently from his arm, stumbling blindly, desperately, from the bed. He can't see a thing, and he can't fucking breathe, but Kakashi's hands are reaching out, trying to pull him in, and he needs to get away. Suzuki somehow makes it to the conjoining bathroom without tripping over his own feet and face planting onto the floor. He slams the door behind him, ignoring the calls of his name, sliding down the closed door and onto the floor. His heart is racing, his chest rising rapidly. He can hear his own breaths, desperate drowning gasps in the empty room, but he still feels like he can't breathe. Suzuki. Open the door, please. Suzuki ignores the words from the other side of the door. He leans over and tucks his head between his knees, focusing on breathing. Kakashi continues to call his name, and Suzuki reaches up, fumbling blindly with the doorknob to lock it. It takes him a while to calm down. Or at least, to feel like he can breathe again and to stop his heart from beating out of his chest. He draws in an unsteady breath, his hands trembling against his knees. He pushes himself up, carefully walking forward, his arm feeling for the sink. He stops when he feels it, walking slowly up to it. He grips the edge tightly, then raises his other hand up to his face. Dread heavy in his stomach, he begins to unwrap the bandages from around his head. Light creeps in, and he opens his eyes, wincing as the movement pulls at the scabbed over wounds on his face. Light assaults him, and Suzuki blinks rapidly, his vision struggling to adjust. He looks into the mirror in front of him. Onyx eyes stare back at him, set in a bone-white face. Sasuke's breath catches. He raises a shaking hand, fingers brushing the skin beneath his eyes. There's a deep cut between his eyes, from where he dragged the kunai across his face. And his eyes attack his eyes. Sasuke struggles to find a difference. But his brother's eyes are the same exact shade as his own, and they look identical in his face. There's nothing to distinguish them from his own, to prove they aren't his any longer. He has attacked his eyes, but they look the same. Sasuke activates his Sharingan, 3 tomo spinning around his pupil. Then, the pattern twists, and suddenly he's staring into a red 6-pointed star set inside a black iris. And at the center of that, a 3-edged shuriken. Just like the pattern of Itaka's main Jakua. Foolish little brother. Itaka's eyes twisting, burning into him. Sasuke chokes on his gasp, slamming his eyes closed. He shoves his body away from the sink, the image of that pattern burned into his brain, bringing with it the memory of blood and screams and death. He presses his palms against his eyes, Itaka's eyes shaking from the images flooding him. Somehow, he's ended up in his previous position, curled up on the tiled floor against the bathroom door. He struggles to calm his choking breaths. The pattern in his eyes, the main Jakku, the same shape as his brother's on that night and 2 weeks ago, ripping into his mind. Tsukuyomi. The blood surrounding him, the screams attack his voice. His nails dig into the skin around his closed eyes, white-hot rage piercing him. At Kakashi for doing this to him, at Itaka without asking what gave them the right. I'd rather be blind, Sasuke thinks viciously, hysterically. I don't want. Kakashi is still on the other side of the door. Sasuke can feel his presence, can feel as he slides down the floor in an identical position, only inches of wood separating them. Sasuke, Kakashi implores, in a quiet, plaintive voice. Please. I'm sorry. Sasuke presses his face into his knees, squeezing his eyes, Itaka's eyes, shut tight. He doesn't open the door. Chapter 37. Looking back on everything, it's hard for Naruto to believe that it's been less than a month. So much has happened in so little time. He hasn't even had time to properly mourn the Sandaime. It's the morning after Orochimaru's attack on them, and he's visiting Sakura in her hospital room. She looks pale and drawn against the white sheets, still recovering from her surgery. Still dealing with the irreparable damage done to her chakra network. She cried when Tsunade gave her the news. Naruto was standing right there, a witness to the heartbreak in her eyes. I'll never be a shinobi again. Sasuke is recovering as well, but Naruto hasn't seen him. He's refusing visitors. Naruto doesn't understand why, but he's thinking it has something to do with the guilt he set to Kakashi's shoulders that's been present since last night. And Itake, of course. Because when it comes to Sasuke, it always has something to do with Itake. Kakashi won't explain anything about Itake, which is incredibly frustrating. The man stopped the Nine Tails from rampaging, and gave Sasuke his own eyes. Naruto can't make sense of his actions, they're so at odds with his previous ones. Naruto remembers the way Itake kneeled down by Sasuke's side, the gentle way his fingers brushed the hair from his bloody face. It was nothing at all like the cruel hands that once wrapped around his throat. The sound of Sasuke screaming. Naruto flinches, still haunted by that sound 3 weeks later. He doesn't understand how someone who once did that could display such tenderness. Naruto. Sakura says. What is it? Even her bright pink hair looks washed out against her pillow, lacking its usual luster. She's exhausted, both physically and emotionally. The poison eroded her chakra network. Her body will always be chronically weak now. She makes an effort to push herself up, her green eyes duller than usual, showing concern. What's wrong? Shouldn't I be asking you that? You're the one in the hospital bed. A brief look of heartbreak passes over her face at the reminder of her circumstances, before it's gone. And yet, you're the one who looks like they're about to be sick. Her mouth pulls into a frown. Is it the Kyuubi? Are you thinking about what happened again? Sakura knows the truth about him, about the demon that is trapped inside him. After everything that happened, Naruto received permission to reveal the secret to her and to Sasuke, once he starts accepting visitors into his room. Naruto was terrified when he told her earlier that morning. He feared she would look at him in disgust, that she would recoil from him like all the other villagers. He feared she would think he was a monster. Instead, she pulled him into a hug and called him an idiot like nothing had changed. Naruto might have cried into her shoulder a bit. "I already told you that I don't blame you," Sakura says. "It's okay, Naruto." Naruto swallows at the memory of his rage, the despair the demon fox fed on. He nearly allowed that monster to take over. He dreamt of it last night, his mouth flooding with blood as he sank his teeth into Orochimaru's throat. Only when he looked down, it was Sasuke's body beneath him instead. "I could have killed you," Naruto whispers, feeling sick. "I nearly did kill you. Orochimaru nearly killed us. He would have, if you hadn't stopped him. You saved us." Naruto shakes his head. He recalls, with a nauseous churning in his stomach, Sasuke being pinned to the ground, sliding a kunai across his own eyes. And Sakura, her chakra network now damaged beyond repair. "I should have done something sooner," he says, his hands twisting into the orange fabric of his pants. "I should have stopped him before he hurt either of you." Sakura watches him for a moment. Then she scoffs, shaking her head. "So which is it, Naruto? Do you feel bad for letting the Nine Tails take over, or for not letting it happen sooner?" Naruto looks down, scowling. She's right, he's contradicting himself. "I don't know," he admits quietly. I just feel like it's my fault. Both of you got so hurt, and I barely got a scratch on me." Sakura frowns. Her skin is paper white against the sheets, almost causing her to disappear. "I don't blame you for what happened to me. And neither will Sasuke-kun. You'll see." "You don't know that." "I do." Naruto bites his lip, looking away from her sincere expression. He can't help the doubt that creeps through him. Naruto can admit now that he considers Sasuke to be his best friend even if he is a bastard. If Naruto tells him the truth, and Sasuke rejects him. He's been avoiding Sasuke. He knows he has. Kakashi saying he doesn't want visitors is just a convenient excuse to hide behind. "I'm worried about him," Sakura admits. "I know Sensei said he was going to be okay. But with everything that went down with Orochimaru, and now Itachi." Naruto nods. "Yeah. Me too. He can hardly make sense of everything that's happened. How must Sasuke be taking it? Not well, if his refusal of visitors to his hospital room is any indication." Sakura shudders. "I still can't believe he did that to his own eyes. It must have been so horrible. And Itachi really agreed to give him his, why?" Naruto shakes his head, the memory of Orochimaru's feral scream as Sasuke slashed the kunai across his face ringing in his ears. He remembers Itachi's hand wrapping around his elbow, throwing him away from the bars a mere second before he ripped off the seal. "Who knows," Naruto says. "Kakashi knows something, but he isn't saying. I think Sasuke knows, too. I think that's why he's refusing visitors." He remembers Sasuke in the forest, the lost look in his eyes, the way his mind refused to focus on the fight. Didn't he mention Orochimaru saying something to him? Something about Itachi? Naruto groans. Ugh. All these secrets. I'm sick of them. Sakura smiles wanly. I know the feeling. The two of them are silent for a few moments. Naruto sighs, picking at the blood still caked beneath his fingernails. He spent 10 minutes scrubbing his hands last night, and some of it is still trapped there. Hot blood gushing into his mouth. "We should go see him," Sakura says. "I don't care if he doesn't want us to." Naruto blinks, and it takes him a moment to focus on her words. "You know that will only piss him off." "I don't care. We're a team, no, we're a family. Isn't that what you said?" Naruto blinks. After all the craziness that followed it, he completely forgot the shouting match he and Sasuke had during the mission. "We need to talk to each other," Sakura says. "Because if we don't, then all these feelings and issues are just going to build up inside of us and fester." Naruto bites his lip, remembering the words Sasuke shouted at him. He wonders if things might have been different if he'd been willing to try and understand Sasuke before it got to that point, the point where Sasuke had simply had enough. We need to talk to him, Sakura says. We need to make him talk to us. I can try later. But you shouldn't get up. You're still weak. There's a flash of something despondent in Sakura's eyes. Naruto inwardly winces at his own words. He hadn't meant to remind her of her condition. She stares down at her fingers, bloodless and blending into the sheet she's gripping. Her usual liveliness is missing. She looks defeated, and Naruto hates seeing her like this. Tsunade said the damage done is irreparable. Even the simplest of jutsu will be too difficult for her now. I'm sorry, Naruto says quietly. He doesn't know what else he can say. A hint of tears gleam in her emerald eyes. She lowers her head to hide behind her hair. It's okay. I just need some time to process it. Naruto doesn't speak. He watches her shoulders tremor slightly. She laughs, and it isn't a light sound. It's broken and defeated. I don't even know why I'm bothering trying not to cry, she says, wiping at her cheeks as tears spill down them. A shinobi must never show tears. Well, I'm not a shinobi anymore, so I'm allowed to. Personally, I think that's a stupid rule. Naruto jumps, turning his head toward the intruding voice. Kakashi is standing in the doorway, his hip propped against the frame. Kakashi-sensei. Sakura looks mortified the moment she sees him, rubbing her face and straightening on the bed. Kakashi's expression doesn't change at the sight of her tears. He walks forward in his usual slouch, hands in his pockets. Remember what I said to you that day in the training field? When Sasuke was still in his coma. Naruto doesn't know what he's talking about, but realization immediately blooms in Sakura's eyes. You told me I could cry if I needed to. That I shouldn't be upset for having feelings. Naruto thinks. Someone should tell that to Sasuke. Kakashi moves farther into the room. And what's this talk about not being a shinobi? Who said anything about that? Sakura frowns. But I can't be a shinobi. My chakra. You don't need flashy jutsu to be a ninja. Look at Guy. Look at Lee. Naruto brightens immediately. Yeah, Sakura-chan. You can be like Bushy Brows. He doesn't use his chakra, and he's still super strong. He beat Sasuke, remember? Sakura sighs, lowering her head. I don't think I could ever work that hard. Naruto huffs. Well, no, not if you have that attitude. Hey. Naruto imagines what Sakura must be feeling right now. He imagines himself in her place, his dream of being Hokage one day seemingly out of reach. He understands where her feeling of defeat comes from. But the fact that she's just giving up pisses him off. If you really want to be a shinobi, he says, then you'll fight for it. You'll work as hard as you possibly can to make it happen. Naruto's right, Kakashi responds, and Naruto feels a happy thrill go through him at the approving look he gives him. You can still be a shinobi. I'll help you. But it'll require dedication. If you really want this, then prove it. Work for it. Sakura stares at him for a long time. Then, her eyes turn steely, her face resolved. I want this, she says. I want to be a shinobi. I want to be strong. Kakashi's eye curves up into a smile. His hand settles on Sakura's head. You will be. I promise. Sakura smiles hesitantly. Naruto sits there on the bed, fidgeting and feeling like he's intruding. How's Sasuke? He asks. Can we see him yet? Sakura straightens at the question. Kakashi drops his hand, turning to Naruto. No, unfortunately. He still doesn't want any visitors. Still. It's only been a few hours since the last time you asked, Naruto. Did you really think the answer had changed? Naruto's shoulders slump. I guess not. He grits his teeth, anger sparking. Still, doesn't that bastard know we're worried? I gave him this whole speech about how we're a team, and how he needs to talk to us, and he's... Cut him some slack, Kakashi interrupts. He's dealing with more than you know. He'll come to you when he's ready. Naruto isn't so sure about that, but whatever. What could he be dealing with that I don't know? Is it something to do with Itachi? Kakashi places a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Actually, Naruto, I wanted to talk to you about something. It's important. Naruto frowns. What is it? I wanted to talk to you alone. The Jinchuriki blinks, sharing a troubled look with Sakura. He turns back to Kakashi. Okay. Sure. Sakura smiles, though she still looks slightly distressed. Go on, Naruto. I'll see you later. The two of them leave the hospital, Kakashi keeping a light grip on his shoulder as they walk. Kakashi remains silent, and Naruto only grows more confused. It takes him a moment to realize they're headed in the direction of his home. Naruto looks closely at his sensei. The man looks exhausted. Kakashi-sensei, are you okay? Kakashi looks startled by the question, looking down at him. Huh? Oh, yes. I'm fine. In a brief moment of clarity, Naruto realizes that his sensei is full of shit. I'm fine, he says, and Naruto would believe him if it weren't for the fact that he sounds exactly like Sasuke when he says it. They reach Naruto's apartment. Naruto opens the door easily, and Kakashi frowns. Naruto, don't you lock your door? No, what for? Besides, what do I have that someone would want to steal? The Jounin makes a soft noise at the words that Naruto can't interpret. He doesn't bother to take off his shoes as he goes to the kitchen, grabbing a cup of ramen from the cupboard. Man, I'm starving. I haven't had ramen in forever. Want some? No thank you. Naruto, could we sit down? I told you, I need to talk to you. Naruto frowns at the tone. His sensei sounds extremely serious, and is very insistent on getting to the point of being here. Okay. But can I heat up my ramen first? I meant it when I said I was starving. Kakashi lets him heat up his ramen. Naruto admits he might be stalling a bit, but Kakashi is making him nervous. Okay, Naruto says. He pulls back the chair across from his sensei, slurping up his noodles. So what now? The just heated noodles burn his tongue. Kakashi shoots him an exasperated look. Really, Naruto? They're hot. Obviously. Naruto takes a few seconds for his tongue to recover, blowing on his cup of ramen. So what is it? Is it about Sasuke? He's mad at you, right? Kakashi doesn't deny it. He is. Why? I wasn't honest with him about something, and he found out about it. Oh. Naruto thinks about Mitsuki-sensei telling him about the Kyuubi, about how everyone had always known for his entire life. And instead of asking any more questions, he just nods. Yeah, I get that. Secrets suck. Kakashi's face becomes heavier at the words, but the emotion is quickly pushed away. This isn't about Sasuke. Naruto blinks. Oh. Kakashi frowns at the reaction. Why did you think it was about Sasuke? I mean, he's in the hospital right now. And it usually is about him. He's your favorite student. Sasuke isn't my favorite student, Naruto. I care about all three of you equally. But you trained him for the Chunin exams. You taught him Chidori. You didn't teach me anything, you just shoved me off on the closet, pervert. Naruto's hurt feelings resurface when he thinks about it, and he grits his teeth. He's not mad at Sasuke so much anymore, and he has his own jutsu that rivals the Chidori. But Kakashi's disregard of him still stings. Kakashi sighs. That wasn't Naruto. Why do you think I taught Sasuke the Chidori? I don't know, because you like him best? Look, does it matter? Just forget it. You're the one who brought it up. Naruto winces, because yeah, that's true. Kakashi leans forward slightly, stapling his hands on the table in front of him. I meant to talk to you about this a while ago. But then everything with Sasuke happened and it slipped my mind. The reason I chose to train Sasuke and not you had nothing to do with me liking him better than you. Naruto looks at him doubtfully. I'll admit to paying a bit closer attention to Sasuke, Kakashi admits. That's because I saw certain qualities in him that reminded me of myself when I was younger. I didn't want him to make the same mistakes I did, and I thought I could help him. Naruto feels his interest spark at the words. His sensei never shares anything personal, and he has to bite his tongue as to not interrupt him with questions. Sasuke was going up against Gaara. He had already proved in his match with Lee that he was aiming to kill. There were risks during your fight with Neji, but Sasuke, his life was in danger. There were higher stakes. Understand? I had to be sure he could fight. Naruto thinks about it for a moment. He does understand, now that he thinks more deeply about it. He feels some of the resentment he's been holding on to dissipate. Well, why didn't you tell me that? You just said you didn't have time. I assumed my reasons were understood. I didn't think about how it would appear to you, and I'm sorry I didn't take the time to explain properly. That's okay, Naruto says. I thought you didn't want to train me. I handed your training over to Ebisu because I honestly believed he could help you. I didn't mean to make you feel slighted. It takes Naruto a moment to connect the name Ebisu to a person. Oh yeah. He means the closet pervert. Whatever, Naruto says. I still think Sasuke's your favorite. Are you kidding? After these past few weeks, Kakashi shakes his head. Sasuke causes me way too much trouble. Sakura's definitely my new favorite. What about me? You cause too much trouble, too. Wah. Kakashi holds up a hand, and the light-hearted mirth in his eyes quickly dies. But that's not what I brought you here to talk about. There's something else. Something you should have been told already. Naruto quiets down, becoming quickly aware that this wasn't the conversation Kakashi brought them here to have. They had gotten sidetracked. Naruto twists his noodles around his chopsticks, bringing them to his lips. Right. What is it? It's... Naruto, did you ever wonder why it was you the Yondaime sealed the Nine Tails into? Naruto straightens in his seat, suddenly paying closer attention. Why, me? Yes. Honestly? No. Naruto's never thought about it. It hadn't even occurred to him to wonder. Not until Kakashi brought it up. The Nine Tails attack was on the night you were born. Yes, I know. What does that? Naruto. Naruto freezes the way his sensei says his name, his fingers clenched around his chopsticks. The fourth Hokage was your father. The words don't make sense. They do, but they also don't. He understands what each word means individually. Fourth and Hokage and father. But his brain refuses to comprehend them once they're strung together, and he can't process them combined in such a way. The fourth Hokage is my father. He stares at his sensei, uncomprehending. His body feels weird. I was told to keep it from you, Kakashi says. Kushina's pregnancy was a closely guarded secret that only a few people were privy to. It was dangerous for anyone to. His voice fades out as he continues talking. Naruto wants to listen, but his ears can't seem to hear anything. The chair beneath him is unsteady. Naruto has wondered about his parents all his life. Who they are, how they died if they wanted him. And to hear this, after nearly 13 years. Naruto has looked up to the Yondaime for a lot of his life. After learning about the Kyuubi, he went through a brief period where he resented the man for putting the beast inside him. But he got over it quickly, because the fourth was just protecting his village, the way a good Hokage should. The fourth Hokage is his father. Kakashi isn't looking at him, is directly his eyes at the table instead. He was my sensei. I lost my own father very young, and... Minato-sensei, your parents became like family to me. Their deaths destroyed me. Kakashi's voice is rough, his words breaking and cracking as if he's trying to speak around a stone trapped in his throat. Naruto's ears ring. He knows that Kakashi used to be the Yondaime's student. Iruka-sensei told him, and Naruto was so starstruck when he heard. Naruto thinks about all those years spent hated by the village. No attention or generosity to speak of, except for an occasional kind word from Iruka-sensei. And back then, even he could hardly stand to look in Naruto's direction. Because the Nine Tails inside of him killed his parents. And all that time, Kakashi had never why. I used to check up on you sometimes, Kakashi admits quietly. When I was in Umbu. I made sure you never saw me. There's a bitter taste in Naruto's mouth. His chest feels tight with something akin to betrayal. He can't even care that his mysterious sensei is divulging personal information about himself for the first time ever. You never said anything, he says. You left me alone. Kakashi flinches. Naruto. I would have taken you in. But I was 14 and I was unstable. Even if I'd been allowed, I would have been a danger to a child. You could have at least spoken to me. I had no one. Everyone hated me. Kakashi winces. Naruto waits to hear his defense, but he doesn't give any. He's quiet, staring guiltily at his folded hands. I'm sorry, he says. The third Hokage told me I wasn't to be in contact with you, but I should have fought him on it. I should have, but I didn't. And that's another blow to Naruto. The Sandaime was like a grandfather to him. Before Team 7, before Iruka, it often seemed like the old man was the only one to care. Head still spinning, his emotions an incomprehensible mess, Naruto looks at his sensei with uncharacteristic anger. I don't know what you kept from him, but I understand why Sasuke is angry. The Jounin winces again. Naruto. Please leave, Naruto says. I don't want to see you right now either. Kakashi sits there for a moment, frozen in his seat. Then, without another word, he stands and does as Naruto asked. The door closes with a soft click. Naruto throws the rest of his ramen in the trash. He isn't hungry anymore. Chapter 38. Guy finds Kakashi exactly where he knew he would, standing in front of the memorial stone with slumped shoulders. Silently, he sidles up to his rival, his best friend, and directs his own gaze toward the stone, his expression somber. Kakashi. Kakashi doesn't respond. Guy knows he'll stand here for hours not speaking if he isn't prompted. Guy has seen him do it. He's seen him hold vigil in both the sweltering heat and the freezing cold, his feet planted like a tree. I heard about Sakura, he says. I'm sorry. Is she going to be alright? Nothing. Kakashi makes no indication he's heard him, or that he even knows he's there. Guy worries, for a moment, that his friend is dissociating, and is ready to draw him back to himself, as he's had to do many times over the years. But finally, Kakashi speaks. They hate me. Guy frowns at the words. Who? Recalling their conversation only 2 days ago, he shakes his head. Is this about what happened with Orochimaru still? I told you that wasn't your fault. Kakashi is silent again. Guy gives him time to answer, to collect his thoughts. I told Naruto about his parents, he admits. And Sasuke knows I knew about Itachi. Both of them hate me now. Guy winces. He knows, of course, who Naruto's parents are. He also knows how difficult it's been for Kakashi to have the boy on his squad and to keep that secret from him. He doesn't know what happened with Itachi Uchiha, but he's betting it's a similar deal, whatever it is. I screwed up, Guy. Maybe, Guy admits with a shrug. But you told him the truth now, didn't you? Look, I don't know what the entire deal is. I know you can't tell me everything, but you love those kids, Kakashi. And they love you. They hate me. They don't hate you, stop being so melodramatic. Kakashi turns to look at him with a glare. Finally, some of the life returns to him, and Guy's chest blooms with relief. I'm not being melodramatic, Kakashi says. You are. I'm not. Guy can't help the grin that forms on his face. Kakashi scoffs, shaking his head. I know what you're doing, he says. It's not going to work. Knock it off. Guy sighs. His rival has been through so much in his life, but for this month in particular, he's really been put through the ringer. Ever since the Chunin exams, it was like the hits kept coming for him. Now he has 2 students in the hospital, one who might never be the same again. And there's also the ordeal with Sasuke and Itachi. Guy doesn't know what's going on there, but it's clearly a mess. You'll work it out, Kakashi, he says. How about we go get some food? You can tell me all about it, and then we can race up the mountain. I'm still 2 wins ahead of you, remember? Kakashi pulls a face. I'm not really hungry. Don't make me bully you into it. I'll get Genma and Reita to help me. I'm sure they'd love to know how poorly you're taking care of yourself. Kakashi blanches at the threat. Reita, in particular, once sent Kakashi to the hospital himself when he was refusing to go home and rest. Fine, he says, shoulders slumping even further in defeat as he turns away from the monument. I'll go. Just leave those two out of it, I don't need another hospital stay. Guy grins, swinging an arm around Kakashi's shoulders. Great. How do you feel about some sweet dumplings? Sasuke stares into the bathroom mirror. Itake's eyes stare back at him. They're his eyes, as far as anyone will be able to tell. His irises are the exact same shade they've always been, nearly blending into his pupil. Completely identical in all respects. But Sasuke knows they aren't his eyes. And that knowing makes all the difference. Sasuke's fingers twitch with the urge to reach up and tear the eyes out. He's calmed down from 2 days ago, and he doesn't actually want to be blind, so he knows he won't actually do it. But the urge is still there. He isn't blind right now because Itachi saved him because he sacrificed his own eyes. Sasuke isn't sure if he's supposed to be grateful for that. He isn't sure about anything anymore. One thing is for sure, when he thinks about his brother, grateful is definitely not the feeling he gets. Sasuke raises his hand, the image in the mirror copying him. There's a deep cut that runs between both his eyes, just above the bridge of his nose. It's scabbed over now, and is probably going to scar. There's another cut at the base of his throat. Sasuke shies away from looking at that one. His head isn't as loud as it was 2 days ago. In the hours after Kakashi left him, it slowly stopped screaming at him. But even if his thoughts are quieter now, they're still completely a whirl. He still can't make sense of all the revelations the way his entire reality has been turned on its head. Itachi is evil. I have to kill him. For the past 5 years since he witnessed his clan be cut down, these two things have been indisputable for him. It's only been these past couple days that he began to question the second one, if killing Itachi would really be the right course. But even upon learning that Itachi wanted to die, that he did, in fact, feel some degree of guilt, Sasuke still never questioned whether he deserved it. Itachi was evil, and him feeling slightly bad about his actions didn't change that. But now Sasuke doesn't know. He thinks about all the horrible things his brother put him through, the 2 entire weeks of torture he endured. He loved you, Orochimaru said. But is that supposed to make it okay? How could you ever inflict something like that on someone you loved? Sasuke doesn't understand. He knows that there's only one person who can help clear it up for him, but the thought of seeing Itachi makes him want to be sick. He's scared. He's scared that Itachi will deny everything he's saying, but he's even more scared he'll confirm that it's true. If it's true, then that means Itachi. That means Konoha. In the mirror, Sasuke's expression is twisted into one of pain. He spins away from the reflection, his hands trembling. He curls them into fists. He steps out of the bathroom, into his connecting hospital room, and halts in surprise when he sees the Godame standing there in front of him. Sasuke, she says. I believe we have some things to discuss. She isn't wearing her formal robes, for which Sasuke is grateful. Still, her presence is a stark reminder of everything Sasuke has been avoiding thinking about, the things Orochimaru told him and Kakashi confirmed. Konoha ordered my clan to be. Sasuke cuts the thought off, as well as the emotions that accompany it. There's a rush of anger, betrayal, rage lurking just beneath his skin, but he can't give into it, not now. It doesn't make sense, nothing does, and to let himself feel those things would be to let his head get too loud again. His current feelings regarding the village are the same as the ones he has for his brother, confusing and complicated, impossible to begin to understand when he's still missing so much information. So Sasuke pushes them down the same way he did after the massacre, pretending he was fine and that he didn't wish he was dead with his family each day he woke up without them. He walks further into the room, sitting down on the edge of the bed. You mean about Itachi? Yes, Tsunade says. Sasuke waits, unsure of where this conversation is going. Is she going to tell him about his brother? The massacre? Is she going to order him to keep his mouth shut, for the good of Konoha? Has she known the truth this whole time? She must have, she's the Hokage. Kakashi told me you found out, she says. I can't imagine what you're feeling right now. I won't even try. However, I hope you understand that this information you hold is extremely delicate. It's bigger than you know. Sasuke grits his teeth. Because no one will tell me, he bites out. All of you have been lying to me. You killed my family, he thinks viciously, but he doesn't say that part out loud. When he thinks of his parents being killed, Itaki is still the person he sees. The image of him bringing his sword down on their necks. Was any of it real? Was it an illusion just to torture me? Tsunade doesn't look angry, like he thought she'd be. Instead, her face seems to soften. She looks sympathetic, possibly even guilty. You have every right to feel angry, she tells him. But it's not as simple as Orochimaru might have made it sound to you. Whatever you're feeling, I ask that you wait to hear the full story. You deserve to hear it, and I won't stand in the way of that. Sasuke wasn't expecting that. He wasn't expecting her to agree. What's the full story? I could tell you. Or you could hear it from your brother. It's your choice. Sasuke stills and doesn't answer. Can he trust the Godame to tell him the truth? He doesn't know her. She had been lying to him, just like everyone else. Just like Kakashi. But he can't trust his brother, either. How could he? Everything he ever said was worded specifically to manipulate him. How could he ever believe a single word to come out of his mouth? He wants the answers now, wants to reach out and grab them, to demand she tell him everything. But he thinks of the hand around his throat and the sword slashing down. Thinks of cold eyes and the words, "You're nothing to me." Sasuke's throat tightens. I want to hear it from Itaki. She looks at him and nods. Very well. He's in a private ward right now. We're attempting to keep his presence here quiet. It's important you not tell anyone what you know. Sasuke feels a dark bile rise in his chest at the order. You mean so no one will know that Konoha ordered? I didn't say they could never know, Tsunade says, a bit sharply. What happened to your clan was wrong. But this isn't something that can just be announced, understand? I told you already, there's more to it than you know. There's still an anger simmering in his chest, but he calms slightly, his jaw clenched. Fine. Your teammates are okay, Tsunade tells him. In case you were wondering. But Sakura's chakra pathways were damaged by the poison in her system. She has permanent damage. Sasuke pales, anger gone, and replaced by a nauseous feeling. Kakashi told him Sakura was in surgery, but he assumed she would be fine. But no thanks to him, she'll never be the same again. He thinks of how she looked on the ground, her pink hair spread out around her. In that moment, he had truly believed she was dead. His eyes burn at the memory, and he knows with complete certainty that it was all his fault. The Mangekyo he gained is a testament to that. You must kill your closest friend. Sasuke doesn't consider Sakura his closest friend, but he knows he cares for her deeply, no matter how much he may deny it to himself. How else could he have gained the Mangekyo from that unless it was his fault? He feels sick, thinking about that pattern in his eyes. Attack his eyes. But she'll be okay, he asks. Yes. She'll be okay. But you should let them in to see you. Naruto hasn't stopped badgering me. Sasuke frowns. He can't deny a desire to make sure his teammates are really alright after Orochimaru, but he doesn't want to talk with them either, doesn't want to deal with all the questions they'll surely have. And Kakashi will be with them, too. Sasuke winces, thinking about the harsh words he said to his sensei. He doesn't know if he meant them or not, doesn't know if he feels guilty or not, if his anger was justified. He should have told me. He clenches his jaw, pushing the still fresh feelings of betrayal down. I want to see my brother now, Sasuke says, ignoring her words. Now, she asks with slight surprise. Sasuke swallows. The sickness in his stomach grows, and all he can smell is the blood that ran in the streets, can see those haunting eyes that are now in his own skull. He doesn't want to see him, but he needs to. He won't hide away from the truth like a coward. And he won't let Itake, either. If all of it is true, then he'll make his brother tell him to his face. Yes. Now. Tsunade pauses, looking at him with the same concerned look the nurses used to give him. Follow me, she says. Sasuke stands, following her from the room. She walks at a brisk pace, and it takes them a while to reach where she's going. Itaki is on the uppermost floor, on the complete other side of the building. His seems to be the only occupied room on the floor. There are 2 Umbu stationed at his door. Tsunade turns to look at him. Are you okay with me leaving? He has no reason to try anything, but if he does, I'll be fine. Tsunade turns to the 2 masked guards. She speaks a few brisk words to them, but Sasuke's heartbeat is deafening in his ears, and he can't make out what she says. She squeezes his shoulder briefly, and then she's gone. Sasuke's hands are shaking. Itaki is just behind the door in front of him. He stares at it, feeling like he's going to throw up. He remembers the last time he saw his brother, handcuffed to an interrogation table. He remembers the vicious words he spoke. You're nothing to me. Sasuke's nails dig into his palms. He steps inside the room. He's expecting anger, when he first lays his, Itachi's, eyes on his brother. And there is, for half a second, but then the anger is knocked from him like a kick knocking the breath from his lungs. Itachi is laying down on the hospital bed. His arms are resting behind his head, and his face is turned toward the ceiling. He's not wearing his Akatsuki cloak. It's the first time Sasuke's seen him without it since before, and it makes him seem more like the person he was then than the one he is now. There are bandages wrapped loosely around his face, covering his eyes where his eyes are supposed to be. He could have been sleeping, if not for the way his shoulders tensed the moment Sasuke entered the room. Nii-san. Seeing him like this, knowing it's because of him, causes his heart to twist. Sasuke doesn't know what to do with this foreign feeling of worry in his chest, especially when he's still so angry. Sasuke waits for Itachi to acknowledge his presence. But he doesn't. Instead he's silent, his entire body held still, waiting for Sasuke to speak first. Itachi, Sasuke says. Sasuke. Sasuke closes his eyes, and behind them he sees visions of blood and death. His brother's voice triggers them, echoes of screams in his ears. Itachi is silent, his head still facing up toward the ceiling. He knows Itachi can't see him, but it still makes him irrationally angry that he hasn't even turned his head. The silence drags out, and Sasuke's ire grows. Are you really just going to lay there? He demands. Do you really have nothing to say to me? Silence. Then. What could I possibly say? What do you want me to say? There's defeat in his voice. It's heavy and weighed down. Sasuke is caught off guard for a moment, but then he's angry. How about something? How about anything, for once? Itachi has pushed himself up. His head turns just slightly. Sasuke. Tell me if it's true, he says. Tell me if it's true that the village ordered you to kill them. There's no surprise on Itachi's face when Sasuke says this. Either he was already informed that Sasuke knew, or he's hiding his reaction well. He presses his mouth into a line, his jaw and shoulders tight. Tell me, Sasuke repeats. Itachi exhales slowly. Yes. It's the truth. Sasuke grips the rail of the bed in front of him, suddenly unsteady. The words crash over him, and he already knew them to be true, but for some reason, hearing them from Itachi hits harder. Like a final nail in the coffin, no more denying, no more trying to convince himself it can't be. Konoha ordered the Uchiha clan killed. This is the truth. Sasuke sinks onto the edge of the hospital bed near the end. His breath escapes him, and he stares down at a single space on the floor. His vision begins to blur. The world feels slightly unreal. Why? He whispers. Why? After a long, uncertain silence, Itachi begins to tell him. Sasuke is silent as his brother explains, talking as though the story is being pulled out of him. His shoulders are hunched as he speaks, his head lowered and shadowed by his hair. He talks about the Nine Tails attack, about Konoha's response to it. About the suspicions that fell on the clan, about how mistrust bred hatred. He talks about the reasons their father pushed him so hard to join the Umbu Black Ops, and looking back on it now, their father's insistence Itachi join Umbu instead of the police force does seem slightly strange. Itachi was a spy, planted within the Hokage's command. And when the Uchiha started planning their coup, he was to report information to Fugaku and the other clan elders. Except that he didn't. Why? Sasuke demands, his head spinning. If you really did care about them, why didn't you side with them? Why would you betray them? Itachi is sitting with his legs tucked beneath him. There's something unnervingly casual about it. Itaki is far from relaxed, but his body language isn't choreographing the aloofness, the coldness that Sasuke has become used to. I didn't betray them. Bullshit. You turned against them and started reporting on them to the other side. There shouldn't have been sides, Itaka says, a slight sharpness entering his voice. The village and the clan, they're not separate things. They shouldn't have been. That's why the village was created in the first place, to bring the clans together. Sasuke frowns. He isn't sure he likes the way his brother is painting this. He's clearly attempting to tell it from an unbiased perspective, facts only, not opinions, but tiny bits of his feelings are leaking in, and so far, those feelings seem to put him clearly on Konoha's side. Though Sasuke might not be making the proper judgment on that. His thoughts are spinning with everything he's heard. He's still processing the fact that his father was apparently plotting an insurrection. How could I not have known? Sasuke wonders. The obvious answer is, of course, because he was a child. They didn't want to involve him. But still, he should have picked up on something. Looking back now, Sasuke remembers how tense the atmosphere was in those days. The distance that grew between Itaki and their father. Sasuke thinks about Itaka back then. He's always seemed so much older to Sasuke, but he was 13, the same age Sasuke is now. Sasuke doesn't think he's ever fully realized that, and it makes him feel sick to his stomach. Why did it have to be you, he asks. And you said someone helped you kill them, another Uchiha. I'm not sure I can tell you that, Itaka says. The identity of the man who helped me doesn't matter in regards to the story. A part of Sasuke wants to press he's tired of not being told things, but he still has 1,000 more questions. I was trying to prevent a war, Itaka tells him, his voice quiet. I was trying to protect my village, to protect you. The words spark something in his chest, a familiar anger that bubbles easily to the surface. Protect me, he repeats incredulously. Did you seriously? Just what part of anything you've done to me these past 5 years was you protecting me? Itaka doesn't say anything. Perhaps he knows there's nothing he can say. Sasuke's chest is twisting with anger. The emotion had laid dormant for a while, the shock of the story he was hearing causing it to temporarily leave him. But Itaka's words caused it to come roaring back with a vengeance. He tortured Sasuke mercilessly, ripped everything he loved away and made him watch while he did it, and he dared call that protection? After the massacre, Sasuke overheard numerous people talking about how Itaki had spared him. Sasuke had always hated that word because spared implied that he had gotten off lucky, that Itaki had showed him some sort of mercy. When in reality, that couldn't be further from the truth. Spared. What a joke. Itaki may have left him alive, but he certainly didn't spare him. Sasuke closes his eyes, Itaki's eyes, and he can still see it. He can see the blood and bodies in the streets, the screams and cries in his ears, not just shinobi, but civilians, and he can see the blood dripping from his brother's katana and the red of his Sharingan. Itaki refused to kill him that night. Orochimaru told him it was because his brother loved him. But even now that he knows for certain his brother was ordered, Sasuke can't believe the reason he was left alive was out of love. Everything Itaka did to him, how could he ever do that and love him? He couldn't. It's that simple. You're not even worth killing. Why would you do that to me? Sasuke demands. Distantly, he observes that he's shaking. If you were really trying to fucking protect me, then why? Why torture me? Why say those things? Why would you make me watch it? Itaka flinches slightly. You adored me. You wouldn't have believed I did it. Not unless I showed you. I had to make you believe it. Why? Why didn't you just tell the truth? And so, Itaki explains again. Explains why he forced Sasuke to believe the lie that he massacred the clan to test his power. Sasuke was only allowed to be left alive because he wasn't considered a threat, and in order to remain that way, he could never learn what Konoha had done. I threatened Danzo before I left, Itaka says. I told him that if he ever touched you, I would leak classified intel to unallied nations. Sasuke blinks. But, that could have started a war. Would you have really? Itaki opens his mouth to answer immediately, but then he stops, seeming to seriously think about the question. I don't know. Danzo said something similar to me. He said the village was more important to me than you were. I don't want to think that he could have been right. Sasuke swallows at the words, pretending like they don't pierce his heart. I'm sorry, Sasuke. Sasuke doesn't know what to do with the apology. He's fairly sure that this is the most he's ever heard Itachi speak. This is also the most Sasuke has ever been able to read him. He wonders if Itachi is actually letting him see his emotions, or if it's because of his blindness. Perhaps being unaware of other people's expressions has made him less conscious of his own. Sasuke's heart feels heavy and twisted in his chest. He doesn't know what to do with these feelings. Anger and hatred were easy, but this. I've hated you so much, he says quietly, and the words catch in his throat. Sometimes it feels like I've spent my entire life hating you. That was the plan. Sasuke feels anger once again spark in his chest. Well, it was a stupid plan, he snaps. What were you even trying to accomplish? If you wanted to die so badly, why make me do it? Why not just do it yourself? It wasn't about dying, says Itachi. It was about ensuring your place in the village. That you would be safe from Danzo once I was gone. Once you killed me, you would be a hero to the Leaf Village. Then Danzo and the other elders would be unable to touch you. The Tsukuyomi, it was meant to push you. To strengthen your hatred and drive you forward. Sasuke doesn't even know where to begin with that. It's so convoluted and messed up. Sasuke can still smell the blood from the genjutsu. Sometimes he still thinks he's there, trapped forever in that night. That plan is unbelievably flawed, he says, clenching his teeth against the memories. You automatically assumed everything would go the way you plotted out. You literally tortured me. My mind could have easily broken, and then what would you have done? Itachi's lips become a thin line. I knew that you. Don't you dare say you knew I was stronger than that. I was 7. Nobody's that strong at fucking 7. Itachi's face twitches. Something that looks vaguely like remorse settles there, but it's such a foreign emotion on him that Sasuke isn't sure he's reading it correctly. The Tsukuyomi was a mistake, Itachi says. Both times. I realize that now. I never should have done that to you. And that's supposed to fix it. Sasuke's hands are trembling. I tried to kill myself, he thinks about spitting. I would have. That's how you made me feel. What would you have done then? But there are tears pressing at his eyes, and there's something about Itachi's hunched shoulders that makes him unable to do it. A few days ago, he would have relished in the devastation the words might bring, but now. Because Itachi loves him, and despite how angry Sasuke is, there's a small, tiny part of him that wants to throw his arms around him because the brother he loved was still here, has always been here all along. Sasuke loves him and Sasuke hates him. Itachi bows his head, his hair casting his face in shadow. Forgive me, Sasuke. Like hell I will, Sasuke snarls. You asshole. To his embarrassment, Sasuke feels tears pricking at his eyes. He turns his face away sharply, forgetting for a moment that Itachi can't see him. The emotions swirling in his chest are too overwhelming. Gods, how often has he cried this past week? More than he has in the last 5 years, barring the first few days after the massacre. Pathetic. The voice spitting the word at him is Itachi's. Not this Itachi, with his head bowed in repentance, but the one that he's lived with in his head for years. The criminal. The traitor. The uncaring brother. The one that, apparently, was never real. Sasuke turns back to his brother. I'm not thanking you for giving me your eyes, he says harshly. Itachi's mouth quirks just slightly. I don't expect you to. Both of them are silent. Itachi has explained and has said what has needed to be said, so only question left is what happens from here, but Sasuke doesn't know. What now? Sasuke asks. What are you going to do? Itachi bites his lower lip. I know I can never take back what I've done, and you have no reason to forgive me. So whatever you want from me, I'll do. If you don't want me in your life, then I'll go. Sasuke's breath catches. He doesn't know how to respond. He can hardly stand to look at his brother right now, not without remembering everything he's done, but the idea of him just being gone again. I can't forgive you, Sasuke says. But I don't want you to leave either. I need time. Brief surprise crosses Itake's face. He really was expecting me to send him away, Sasuke realizes. It's hard to read with the strip of bandages covering his eyelids, but Sasuke thinks Itake looks relieved. Okay, Itake says. Then I won't leave. Take all the time you need. I might never forgive you, Sasuke warns. I know. And you won't run away again? You'll stay while I figure it out. If you want me to stay, then I'll stay. I won't do anything to hurt you again. I promise. Sasuke is silent for a moment, staring at his brother's bandaged face. Every part of him seems sincere, but that means nothing. Itake made him 1,000 promises in the past and he broke every one he ever made. I wish I could trust that, Sasuke says. But I know better now. I don't trust your promises. I don't trust you. Itake is quiet for a moment. There's something said about his expression. He inclines his head. Then I guess that's something I'll have to earn. Chapter 39. It's been 5 days since the fiasco that left 2 members of Team 7 and a notorious missing nin in the hospital. Tsunade sits at her desk and wishes she could go back in time to refuse the position of Hokage when Naruto and Jiraiya sought her out to demand it of her. She's only held the position for 2 weeks. Jiraiya looks at her in sympathy, leaning against the frame of the closed window. A fine mess you've landed yourself in, Tsunade. Tsunade massages her temples before raising her head. This is unacceptable. She shouldn't have to be dealing with this, she shouldn't have to be spending her newly received tenure in this chair dealing with this political chaos. This was Sarutobi's responsibility, a tangled web of lies and corruption woven right under his nose by fault of his negligence, but now he is dead, and she is left with his mess. She is left with Danzo Shimura, the dark roots lurking under Konoha's soil, poisoning its bright green leaves. What are you planning to do with him? Jiraiya asks. Who? Tsunade asks with a sigh. Danzo or Itake? Itake, he replies, deciding to present her with the easier option because as ludicrous as it sounds, the former Akatsuki actually is the lesser issue at the moment. Easier to deal with than Danzo, a member of the council and a powerful figure, backed by the other 2 elders. Seeds of discord and corruption sliding into every crack and crevice, black roots reaching deep into the ground and growing, strangling Konoha's beating heart. Yes. Itake Uchiha is the easier option here. For now, he will be kept under guard. Not Umbu, they can no longer be trusted Jounin handpicked by me personally. His presence in the village will be kept a secret as the investigation into Danzo continues. Once it is complete, the information surrounding the massacre will be declassified and made public knowledge. Carefully, of course. Itake is disabled, so he will be unable to return to his position as a shinobi, but he will be reinstated as a village citizen. His status of traitor will be dropped, so long as he continues to provide intelligence on the Akatsuki. Jiraiya takes a long moment to think over those words, appearing to think deeply before formulating a response. You're sure that's wise? Just because he was once loyal doesn't mean he can still be trusted. He's been a member of a criminal organization for years now. An organization that he joined on the Third's orders, Tsunade reminds him. And that he has now betrayed. He's already provided us with invaluable information. Jiraiya's mouth thins, still doubtful. You're misunderstanding him, she says. Itake lost his clan and his village in the same act. His report on the matter makes it very clear that there is only one thing that still matters to him: his little brother. If it weren't so horrifying, I would even say that his plan was a good one. Itake intended to exist as a reviled criminal until Sasuke could reasonably kill him. Sasuke would be a hero to Konoha, redeeming the Uchiha name. You don't believe he will still attempt something of the kind? It was made clear to him that too many people know the truth. He cannot possibly silence everyone who knows, not now, and when it does eventually come to light, Sasuke would hardly be considered a hero for killing him. Rather, everyone will see both boys for what they are. Tragic, mistreated children. Because they are children, Tsunade thinks. They are, and this village has failed them. Itake was only 13 when he was made to cut down his family in service to Konoha. Tsunade knows that the life of a shinobi is cruel. That it forces children to become soldiers. But this spits in the face of everything Konoha was built to stand for, everything her grandfather fought to build and to protect. The title of Hokage has been stained with blood. It was her own sensei who allowed it to happen, and now it can never be washed out. And what of Sasuke? Jiraiya asks. One of Itachi's reasons for keeping the truth from him was so that he would never turn on the village. Even if Itachi is still loyal, can we trust that he is? Tsunade does not answer this. It would be understandable for Sasuke Uchiha to wish harm on Konoha, but at the same time, Tsunade cannot allow any threats to this village. He's just a kid who has been broken and traumatized and had his entire world turned upside down, but if he's going to seek vengeance. He's angry, understandably, Tsunade says. But I've seen no signs of anything beyond that, not yet, at least. He's still processing everything. I believe it best to let him for now. Truthfully, Tsunade doesn't know what she'll do if Sasuke decides to turn his back on Konoha. He has every right to hate the village, but as Hokage, she'll have a responsibility. What happened to the Uchiha clan was horrible. But they were planning a coup. They were a serious, genuine threat to the village. The elders' decision to wipe them out, while morally wrong, isn't actually a crime. They can't be punished. Danzo can be, for at least one account of bloodline theft as well as various other crimes she's sure will be uncovered soon. But Homura and Koharu can't be brought up on any actual charges. Sasuke deciding to carry out his own vengeance, however justified, will be considered treasonous. Tsunade sighs. This is a mess, she says. And then there's what Itachi said. Madara Uchiha, Jiraiya says gravely. You believe him? Does Tsunade believe Madara Uchiha is the leader of the Akatsuki? She doesn't know. It seems impossible. But Inoichi confirmed it, and Itachi has no reason to lie. I believe he believes it, Tsunade says. Regardless of whether it's actually him, if he's powerful enough to pass as him, then we're already in major trouble. What will you do? I have no idea. Both of them are silent for a moment, quietly contemplating the threat that lies ahead, the war that is creeping steadily closer. Tsunade has fought in 2 world wars, and she remembers the way the air felt as they crept closer, the way the sky seemed to hold its breath. It feels that way again now. We get rid of one threat, Jiraiya says, only for an even larger one to take its place. Tsunade hates the painful twist her heart makes at the words. Because Orochimaru is dead, and she should be relieved, not sad. He killed her sensei and attempted to destroy her home. He doesn't deserve her grief. Not one bit of it. And yet, there's a part of her that grieves him still. Jiraiya's face becomes pinched slightly. Sorry. Tsunade clenches her jaw. I know it's wrong to grieve him. It isn't. You're allowed to feel how you want. Tsunade meets his eyes from behind her desk. Do you grieve him? Jiraiya turns his troubled gaze toward the window, those dark eyes heavy with deep emotions. He doesn't respond. And Tsunade remembers a child, golden eyes and dark hair, pale lips curving into a genuine smile. But that boy died a long time ago. Finally, 3 days after his visit with his brother, Sasuke lifts his ban on having no visitors. Naruto and Sakura are bursting through the door of his hospital room almost immediately, not even 10 minutes after he tells the receptionist downstairs. Sasuke has no idea how they became aware so quickly, and it's honestly kind of frightening. Sakura moves to hug him, but Sasuke flinches when he catches sight of the twin marks on her pale throat. She freezes, then steps back to a wider distance. Sasuke-kun, she breathes. Are you okay? Her eyes are on his face, and Sasuke knows without asking that she's trying to find a difference in the dark eyes that are there. She won't find one. Sasuke has tried, standing in front of the mirror for over an hour. Itachi's eyes. I'm okay, Sasuke says. It's far from the truth, but it's the easiest answer. And how he's feeling is too much to explain anyway, even if he were able to find the correct words. How are you? I thought. Sasuke chokes on his words, remembering the feeling of seeing her lifeless on the ground. He can taste the fear that he felt. I thought you were dead. I thought. Sakura's face softens. She sits down on the end of the bed, reaching over to cover his hand. I'm okay, she also says, smiling wanly. I mean, I'm alive. And I'm dealing with it. Naruto is unusually silent, standing by the bed. Sasuke is trying not to look at him too obviously, but the last time he saw him, his teammate was surrounded by a malicious chakra, transforming into some sort of inhuman monster. He was on the edge of consciousness when he saw it, but he's certain he wasn't imagining it. About time you finally let us see you, Naruto says. It's been a week. We were worried. Did you forget everything I said to you about us being a team? Normally, this would be the time when Sasuke would become irritated and snap back at the blonde. But for some reason, he doesn't feel the urge to this time. He also can't bring himself to apologize, but he's too tired to fight. He doesn't want to fight. It's been 5 days, Sasuke tells him. Not a week. And I've only been awake for 4 of them. Naruto rolls his eyes. Whatever. Nice scar, bastard. Sasuke raises his hands to the cut between his eyes. It's healing very quickly, and it's already showing signs of scarring as is the thin line at his throat. You look like Iruka-sensei, Sakura says. Naruto scoffs. He does not. Iruka-sensei's scar is lower down. It's a lot cooler. Sasuke isn't sure whether he's meant to be insulted by that, and he lets the words pass him. Where's Kakashi? Doesn't he want to come pester me too? Not that Sasuke wants to see his sensei at all. He's just surprised that the man hasn't tried to come and talk to him since Sasuke threw him out. Naruto's face tightens. I'm not talking to him. Sakura sighs. Naruto. Sasuke frowns. Why? What did he do to you? Kept a secret from me, Naruto says, crossing his arms across his chest. I heard he kept something from you, too. Sasuke swallows down the bitter feeling of betrayal in his throat. He did. Was it about Itachi? Maybe. Was yours about that thing I saw you turn into? Naruto's face immediately drains of color, going chalk white. Sakura sucks in a sharp breath, turning to look at him. Sasuke knows he hit the nail on the head. You saw that? Naruto says quietly, voice shaking. I saw something. Sasuke remembers the strange chakra, but stronger than that, he remembers the malicious feeling of it in the air. It isn't the first time he's felt it, either. And before, too. In the Forest of Death, with Gaara, with Itachi. A light bulb switches on in his head, as he remembers Itachi's indifferent face as he spoke to Jiraiya. Ignoring Sasuke's presence completely. Naruto is the prize the Akatsuki are after, he said. This, Sasuke realizes. This was the reason. Naruto, Sasuke says, his eyes narrowed, what are you? An emotion flashes through Naruto's eyes. He hardens his jaw, then steps forward to join Sakura on the foot of the bed, facing Sasuke directly. I'm your friend. The 3 words steal Sasuke's breath, the strength and conviction behind them. He remembers the 2 of them standing in front of Orochimaru, refusing to run when he told them to protecting him. An emotion wells up in his chest. He's speechless. The 3 of them are silent for a long moment. Muffled voices filter in from the hallway through the crack in the door. They are sitting together on the bed in an almost circle, facing each other. Naruto is sitting on one of his feet, but it doesn't hurt, so Sasuke doesn't try to move him. Sakura turns to look at Naruto. Tell him, she says. Naruto swallows, a flash of fear going through his eyes. The 9-tailed fox is inside me, he blurts out. The 4th Hokage is my father, and he sealed it inside me to save the village 13 years ago. Sasuke blinks. His mouth falls open slightly. Sakura smiles and then her eyes widen as she processes the whole sentence, and her head snaps around. Wait, the 4th Hokage was your father. You didn't tell me that. And so, Naruto begins his explanation. He talks about when he found out about hosting the fox inside him, and how it was told to him to have happened. Sakura listens as intently as he does, though she was already aware of him being the Jinchuriki. These details are clearly new to her as well. So many things that never made sense click into place. Naruto's rapid growth, his sudden bursts of strange strength. The reason the villagers have always hated him. And though Sasuke does feel a bit resentful, knowing his teammate has this much power inside him, is already so much stronger than him, he also feels something inside of him ease. Because this is why Take was after Naruto, because of what is inside of him, not because he holds him in higher regard than he does Sasuke. He knows now, of course, that most of Take was an act that day. But it still doesn't erase that burning, scathing feeling of worthlessness, when his brother's eyes passed him over completely in favor of a boy he didn't even know. Naruto is the prize the Akatsuki are after. Go away. You don't interest me at the moment. That's why Take wanted you, Sasuke says out loud. Because of the fox. Naruto nods. Yeah. That organization Akatsuki whatever. Akatsuki. Yeah, that. They're after the power of the Kyuubi. I don't know why. Naruto looks at him uncertainly for a moment, then asks, by the way, what's up with your brother anyway? I mean, he sort of saved me from going on a rampage and killing you, and he gave you his eyes, but he also tortured you and killed your family, so. I don't get it. Like, is he evil or not? Are him and his weird shark friend still coming after me, or? I'm confused. He's confusing. Itachi has always been confusing, Sasuke says. He leaves it at that, allowing them both to draw the conclusion that he doesn't know, either. It's not that he cares about keeping it a secret, he's sick to death of Konoha's secrets, and he's tempted to shout the truth from the rooftop just as a fuck you to every single person who kept their lips sealed all these years, but telling everything to his teammates is something he isn't prepared to do. It will require a long conversation and they will have so many questions. Sasuke can't deal with their feelings when he hasn't figured out his own. And what if they side with Konoha? What if? No. Sasuke can't do it. Not now. I can't believe your father is the Yondaime, Sakura says, shaking her head. That's just wow. Naruto does look just like him, Sasuke points out. Though the Yondaime was a genius, so clearly Naruto didn't inherit his brains. There's nothing but empty space up there. Sakura laughs. Naruto scowls, kicking out at Sasuke with one of the feet he has crossed in front of him. Bastard! Are you forgetting all those times you were down on the ground and I had to swoop in to rescue you? Sakura turns to him with a half smile. He has a point, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke scowls. Remind me why I haven't kicked both of you out yet. Naruto grins. Because you secretly love us. The blonde reaches for him, grabbing his shirt and shaking him. Sasuke bats him away irritably, attempting to free the foot he's still sitting on to kick out at him. Get off, dead last moron, stop touching. His foot hooks around the bedsheet and pulls at it. Naruto's eyes widen, and he lets out a cry as his body tips off the bed, his arms flailing comically. He lands on the floor with a thump, now tangled in the white sheet that covered Sasuke. All three of them are quiet for a moment, then Sakura lets out a loud peal of laughter. Sakura-chan. It's not funny. I think I bruised one of the bones in my butt. This only makes her laughter rise in volume. To Sasuke's consternation, he feels the corners of his own lips curve up. He quickly smothers any traces of amusement. Get up off the floor, moron. Naruto scrambles back up onto the bed, raising a fist to punch Sasuke in the shoulder. Sasuke scowls, pushing his arm away. Knock it off. Or I'll throw you off again. Naruto crosses his legs in front of him, setting more firmly on the bed. I can't believe Kakashi-sensei kept it from me, he says. They were my parents. And he never said anything. Did you know the fourth Hokage was his sensei? Sakura blinks. Really? I knew that, Sasuke says. How? There's a picture in his apartment. I saw it when I was staying with him. Are you still going to stay with him? Sakura asks. Sasuke frowns and doesn't answer. No, he doesn't want to stay with Kakashi right now, even if his anger at the man is beginning to cool down, he's still mad at him. But he hates the idea of going back to the empty compound. You can stay with me, Naruto says. It can be like a sleepover. Sasuke rolls his eyes. You're kidding, right? Your place looks like a hurricane went through it. I'm amazed you can even live there. Hey. It's not that bad. Sasuke doesn't attempt to argue. Sakura smiles at them quietly, before the expression fades into one of contemplation. I think you should consider forgiving Kakashi-sensei, she says. Both of you. Naruto, I understand why you are angry and I don't know what he kept from you, Sasuke-kun, but I understand it was important but Kakashi-sensei is hurting, too. He came by my hospital room 2 days ago. He looked really bad. Naruto crosses his arms across his chest. Nua. I don't care. Sakura frowns. Naruto. You said all of us were a team, remember? That we need to talk to each other. Well, it's not just the 3 of us. Kakashi-sensei is a part of Team 7, too. The steely resolve in Naruto's eyes wavers slightly. I'll think about it. Sakura turns to Sasuke. Sasuke-kun. Sasuke scowls. Whatever. Maybe. She smiles. Good. I just want all 4 of us to be a team again. There are circles under her eyes, and her pink hair looks drab and washed out. Sasuke feels guilt churn inside of his stomach looking at her. She'll never be the same again, forever damaged by the events of what happened. She nearly died and it's all Sasuke's fault. He winces, raising a hand to touch the black mark on his neck. Orochimaru is dead, but nothing about it has changed. He can still feel its power burning beneath his skin fused into his bones. I'm sorry, he says. His eyes flicker to the 2 pincer marks at her neck. You nearly died because of me. And you'll never be a shinobi now. The apology feels strange and foreign on his lips, but it's something he feels needs to be said, even if it stings his pride to do so. He doesn't look away from her. Sakura shakes her head. I'm not giving up. I will be a shinobi. And it wasn't your fault, Sasuke-kun. Yeah. Naruto agrees immediately. Blame that damn snake. Everything's all his fault. At least that creep is gone now. Even if it was kind of disgusting how I ripped out his throat. You did what? Time passes as they talk. It feels nice for the 3 of them to be together like this, though Sasuke would never admit it, not even on pain of death. There's an empty 4th space where Kakashi should be, but Sasuke stubbornly ignores it. Sakura ends up with her head in his lap, and for reasons unknown to him, he allows it instead of shoving her off. They're talking about what Sakura is going to do now. Sasuke mentions the different options she still has, and at the mention of possibly learning to fight using only taijutsu, Naruto bursts out laughing. Oh my god, Sakura-chan. You can be like bushy brows. You can get your own green jumpsuit. Sakura looks absolutely horrified. That is not going to happen. Can you imagine what Ino would say if she saw me in something like that? That you really managed to rock spandex. Sakura sits up to throw a fist at him. Naruto yelps, shielding his face and yelling rapid-fire apologies. Hey, Sasuke-kun, Sakura asks him, sometime a little later. There's something I was wondering about. How did Orochimaru get a hold of you in the first place? Did he take you? Kakashi-sensei said he was placed under a genjutsu, but Naruto, and I didn't hear anything. Sasuke swallows. His mind goes back to that moment, on the ground with his back against a tree trunk. The kunai in his hand, the painful sting of the blade. No, Sasuke says. I was already out there. I needed to be alone. To think. Without meaning to move, his hand moves to brush along the cut at his throat, shallow now, soon leaving only a thin line behind. He shivers, and Naruto's eyes catch the movement. Did he do that to you? Naruto asks, his eyebrows furrowed. I thought he was trying to possess you or something, not kill you. Wouldn't slitting your throat kill you? Sasuke lowers his hand, his fingers twitching. He sits there for a moment, making the decision. The knowledge of what he did, what almost happened, burns in his chest. He doesn't want them to know he was that weak, that pathetic, but still, a desperate urge to say the words bubbles up in him. For once, he just wants someone to see. Orochimaru didn't do it. I did. Back against the tree. Metal of the weapon cool against his hand. The night air sharp on his face and the crickets chirping. The world fading and blurring around him, and the sharp drag of the blade across skin. Sasuke's hands tighten into fists against his crossed legs. I tried to kill myself, he says. Saying the words out loud feels like a kick to his chest. It somehow makes it real. I tried to kill myself, I nearly killed myself. It isn't like it was the first time he felt like that, the first time he held the point of a kunai under his chin. But those were the days directly following the massacre, sitting in an empty house that was collecting cobwebs and dust. When everything was hopeless and agonizing, and he was cursing Ataka's name for leaving him alive. But even then, he hadn't gone through with it. He never would have, because he had a goal. If you wish to kill me one day. This time was different. The feeling that came over him, if Orochimaru didn't interfere, knocking the blade from his fingers at the last half-second, he really would be dead now, by his own hand. His teammates would have found him with his blood spilling onto the ground, his brother would have found him. Naruto and Sakura are both silent. There's a stillness to the room, and for a moment, Sasuke wonders if he actually said the words out loud. The air conditioning blows gently from the vent, through the door and down the hall. Somebody laughs. What? Sakura breathes quietly, her hushed tone barely disturbing the air. Why? They both look horrified. Sasuke can't stand the looks in their eyes. He takes a shaky breath. Orochimaru, stopped me. Knocked the kunai out of my hand. Naruto's eyes are a bright blue, burning into his soul. Sasuke, he whispers, and Sasuke ducks his head to escape that gaze. Suddenly, there are arms locked tightly around him. Pink hair obstructs his vision and a warm body is pressed against his. Sakura is hugging him tightly and she's crying, Sasuke realizes. Silently, but Sasuke can feel the tears soaking into his shoulder. Sasuke-kun, she says, her voice breaking. Her hands fist into the back of his shirt. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you felt like that you felt like doing that. You don't still, do you? Naruto says, finally finding his tongue and searching his face imploringly. I mean, you don't still want to. Sakura leans back to also look at him, wiping the tears from her cheeks. Sasuke-kun. You don't, do you? Sasuke swallows the lump that has risen in his throat. His chest is tight, tangled up in knots, and he shakes his head. No. No. He doesn't think he still feels that way. At least, not in the way he did then. Does he still want to die? He doesn't think so. He doesn't think he ever really did. Or else, why does the thought of it scare him so much? Why, when Orochimaru knocked the blade from his hand, was he immediately horrified when he realized what he had almost done? I don't think I ever wanted to, he admits. Not really. I was in a bad place, and it felt like I was falling. It felt like I would never stop. I just wanted it to stop. Sasuke's voice cracks. Mortified by this, he hides his face behind his hair, fighting of the burn of tears. Because that's the truth, isn't it? In that moment, when he did it, he tried to dress it up as being done out of spite. Out of rage. Because he wanted to spit in Ataka's face, wanted him to suffer and truly feel what he had done to him. And maybe that was part of the reason, but it wasn't the heart of it. He didn't put that blade to his throat out of revenge. He did it because he had had enough. Because he just wanted it to stop. And it scares him now that he got that low. In that moment, it had felt like he was watching his own body move without actually controlling it. Like he was immersed in a fog. But he's not in that fog now, and no matter how horrible he still feels, he doesn't want that. He doesn't want to be gone. But Naruto and Sakura are staring at him like they're afraid he'll take a sharp implement to his wrists the moment they leave, and Sasuke doesn't know how to explain it to them. He doesn't know how to explain how that moment in the forest felt that his desire to die, to stop, was a hole he had fallen into for a few short moments, not his permanent state. I'm not going to do it again, he says. It was just a moment. That's all. Sakura bites her lip. Sasuke-kun, you tried to kill yourself. You have to tell someone. You have to tell Kakashi-sensei. No. Sasuke yells, panic rising suddenly. Sakura and Naruto flinch back, and Sasuke takes a calming breath, lowering his voice. No. It's. I'm not going to do it again, just don't tell him. Please. Sakura and Naruto look at him, sharing a look with each other. You swear? Naruto says, his voice still shaking slightly. You swear you won't do anything like that again? I swear. Naruto presses his mouth into a thin line. Okay, he says reluctantly. Okay, we won't tell. As long as you promise. You're my best friend. I don't want to lose you. Sasuke doesn't know what to say to that. The words "you're my best friend" too burn on his tongue, but he chokes on them like chunks of glass stuck in his throat, unable to force them out. He breaks eye contact. And suddenly, Sakura's arms are around him again. And a second pair of arms Sasuke rocks backwards as Naruto throws his entire body at him. He hugs nothing like Sakura does. Sakura is gentle and careful, whereas Naruto completely engulfs. Naruto, Sakura grumbles, also stuck beneath the Jinchuriki's arms. What are you doing? I thought we were having a group hug. Sasuke scowls. Both of you get off, he snarls, attempting to throw both of them off. It's a futile effort, and neither of them budges. I mean it. Get off. Nope, Naruto says. We're hugging you. You're being hugged. Deal with it. Sasuke attempts, for a few more seconds, to escape. It's pointless. Eventually, with an annoyed grumble, he acquiesces to the embrace, allowing them to hug him. Like hell he's going to hug them back though, and Naruto's going to get punched for this later. If you ever feel like that again, Sakura says. Promise me you'll tell us. Promise you'll let us help you. Sasuke swallows back the knee-jerk reaction to tell them to mind their own business. He bites his tongue until it bleeds. I promise, he says finally. Itachi has always broken his promises. Sasuke has always resolved to keep all of his. Chapter 40. On Saturday, at 8 in the morning, Kakashi is pulled from a troubled sleep by a loud banging on the door of his apartment. At so early, Guy can be the only culprit, and Kakashi groans into his pillow, knowing the man won't leave until he receives an answer. Kakashi climbs from bed, trying to shake away the vestiges of sleep. After making sure he's dressed decently, he drags his feet from his bedroom and across the small apartment, unlocking the door and pulling it open. What? Guy isn't there. Instead, he's looking at the hallway wall. Kakashi lowers his gaze about 1.5 feet, feeling a surge of surprise when he sees his student standing there instead of his rival. Naruto? What are you doing here? Naruto looks uncomfortable, shifting his feet in the hallway as he looks up at him. Sasuke told me where your apartment was. Can we, talk? Kakashi moves aside, exhaustion still affecting his ability to think properly. Naruto steps into his apartment, looking around curiously, and Kakashi closes the door. What is it? He asks, moving to sit down at the table. It's mornings like these that he hates Guy for routinely confiscating his coffee. It must be important if you're getting up this early. I don't sleep that late. Kakashi knows for a fact that on days when Team 7 isn't scheduled for training or a mission, Naruto sleeps until noon. So being awake at 8 o'clock is rather astounding. Still, he lets the words go without further comment. He's too tired right now. He hasn't talked to Naruto since telling him about his father a few days ago. They were sitting in an identical position then, only in Naruto's apartment instead of Kakashi's. Naruto commanded him to leave, his blue eyes angry and hurt. The same as Sasuke's. Kakashi hasn't spoken to him in even longer. You spoke to Sasuke? He asks. How is he? Naruto shifts slightly at the question. He's fine. Kakashi picks up on the tone of the words the threads of uncertainty and nerves. He narrows his eyes slightly. His Sharingan is bared, his headband left on his bedside table, which is no doubt contributing to his current level of exhaustion. Naruto, if something is up with Sasuke. There isn't, the blonde says, firmer this time. A lot happened, is all. Oh, and he's still mad at you, if you were wondering. Kakashi assumed that to be the case. He sighs, closing his eyes. The chakra being diverted to his left eye is briefly cut off. He reopens his right, leaving the scarred one closed. And you, he asks. Are you still angry? I understand if you are. Naruto bites his lip, staring down at his hands. I am. I'm still really upset that you kept the truth about my dad from me, especially when you guys were so close. It's different than everyone else, because to them he was just the Hokage, but you actually knew him. Kakashi holds back the memories. A hand on his shoulder and ruffling his hair. After Rin's death, arms pulling him against a solid chest. It's okay. It's okay, I'm here. Naruto is still speaking. Kakashi refocuses on him. But Sakura-chan was talking yesterday, and she said we should try to forgive you. She said you looked really bad, which I now see is true, because you look awful. Anyway, I don't know if I can forgive you yet. But I think I want to start. Kakashi blinks. A part of him is surprised, but another part of him isn't. In Kakashi's opinion, Naruto has every right to be mad at him, but Naruto is also a very empathetic, forgiving person. He has always sought to know and understand everyone, even his enemies. This is a trait he has inherited from Minato, certainly not from Kushina, who could hold a grudge like no one Kakashi has ever seen. If you knew my dad, Naruto says, then you must have known my mom, too, right? I was upset before, and I shoved you out before I could ask. You knew her, right? Kakashi smiles slightly beneath the mask. I knew her well. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki, and she loved ramen almost as much as you do. Naruto's blue eyes are filled with emotion. Really? What else? Can you tell me about her? Surprisingly, talking about them doesn't hurt as much as Kakashi thought it would. There's an ache, of course, there always will be, but it almost feels good to talk about them out loud, to share these precious memories with their son. Kakashi's eye curves into a smile. Sure. I can tell you about both of them. Sasuke stares at the gates of the empty Uchiha district, a dark pit in his stomach. He feels sick looking at it, and the presence of his teammates is the only thing holding him together. Memories whisper at the corners of his mind, even now with the entire compound bathed in daylight. Are you sure? Sakura asks. You don't have to come inside, Sasuke-kun. Naruto and I can get your stuff for you. It's a tempting offer, but Sasuke locks his jaw. No. You two don't even know which house is mine, and I have to do this. He doesn't want to do this. Just standing here on the sidewalk, he feels like his feet have become molded into the ground. But he's tired of letting his fear control him, and he's tired of these memories controlling him. He's tired of seeing blood and death every time he closes his eyes, and he won't run away while his teammates face it for him. He won't be a coward. He won't let what Itaka did to him control his life. He's still not going to be living in the compound. He knows he won't be able to handle that, and he isn't stupid enough to try it. He does want to someday, because it's his home, and he won't let the memory of his family become a mountain of dust. One day, he wants to return there, to his house, to the place he grew up. Maybe Itaka will even come with him. Maybe they can clean the place up together. Maybe once Sasuke decides if that's something he wants. Someday. In a few months, or in another year. But not now, when looking at it makes him feel unable to breathe right. For now, he'll be taking Naruto up on his offer of staying with him. It's only a temporary arrangement, until he can secure his own apartment, because Naruto's place is unbelievably small. And if Sasuke has to live under the same roof with him for too long, he's fairly certain he'll end up killing him. Naruto seems to think it's a wonderful idea. He's clearly short of a brain cell. The blonde knocks his shoulder against Sasuke's. Well, let's go then. Or are you planning to just stand here all day? Sasuke scowls, knocking the boy back, though he does it harder. Shut up. I don't even need you here, moron. I can do this myself. If his two teammates can tell it's a lie, neither of them call him out on it. Sasuke forces his feet to move, and the three of them cross over into the abandoned district. Sasuke feels his chest constrict immediately, feels something like panic begin to claw at his throat, but he focuses on the two people walking next to him. He focuses on the warmth of the sun shining down on him. The sun helps. There's a reason he chose to do this now, in the middle of the afternoon. Bright daylight is illuminating everything, chasing away all the shadows. It anchors him, keeps him in the moment. There was no sun in the Tsukuyomi. Only a blood-red moon shining down on him, and the streets and sky were dark. A landscape made up of shadows. But the compound doesn't look like that, now. It's still difficult, of course. Day or night, it's still the same place. The same streets. He can see dark stains in some spots, where the blood never washed out the senbei shop where Uroshi-san and Tiaki-san used to work, where he came upon their bodies. The street he ran down when fleeing from Itake. Tripping, heart exploding in his chest, his elbows and hands smearing in blood. Tears hot on his cheeks and cold, dead eyes. You're not even worth killing. Sakura reaches over and grabs his hand, squeezing tightly and drawing him back. We're right here, Suzuki-kun. Suzuki takes a shaky breath, shoving the images away. He focuses on the sun on his face and Sakura's palm against his. I'm not there anymore. He pulls his hand out of Sakura's, the anchoring touch quickly becoming uncomfortable. She frowns slightly, but she lets go easily. The streets are the hardest part. They're the strongest reminder of that night, the strongest reminder of Itaka's Tsukuyomi. And the room where his parents were murdered, but Suzuki isn't planning on going in there. His house will be easier. Besides that one terrible room, the walls and floors haven't been stained with blood. His bedroom will be fine. It isn't there that he huddled in a corner for 2 weeks, shaking and trembling as he watched the katana slice down over and over and over and over. Suzuki bites the inside of his cheek. He grips the straps of his backpack tightly, hefting it up more on his back. That's your clan crest, right? Naruto asks him, gesturing toward one of the numerous fans surrounding them. The one you wear on your back? What does it mean? It's called an uchiwa, Suzuki explains, allowing the conversation to distract him from the streets he's walking. It's a type of paper fan. It's pronounced uchiwa, but it's written uchiha, because the ha character takes on the wa sound. Yes, says Naruto, but what does it mean? Suzuki rolls his eyes irritably. I don't know, Naruto. The Uchiha clan is one of the oldest clans out there. Our crest has been around for decades. A memory pricks at his mind, something from long ago that has nearly faded from his mind, and he pulls on it, saying slowly, Itaka told me about it once. I can't quite remember what he said, something about the Uchiwa symbolizing the wind that fans the will of fire. But that's nonsense, because the Uchiha clan existed long before Konoha did. The memory is hazy. He remembers sitting on a porch. He remembers his brother's smile, blurred around the edges. It stings to think about, and Suzuki shoves it away. Not just because it's one of the few memories he has where Itaka looks genuinely happy, but because it's a reminder of the way Konoha has twisted things. Pieces of his clan's history that have nothing to do with the village, now made to fit a different narrative. Suzuki's hands curl into fists. He breathes out slowly, trying to let the anger go. He can't think about it right now. He can't deal with it. Konoha killed my clan. Should we have brought boxes? Sakura asks. I feel like we should have brought boxes. I don't have a lot of stuff. Yeah, but are you sure you can fit it all into one backpack? Suzuki doesn't deign to respond, as they turn a corner and finally reach his house. Suzuki's feet halt in front of it, and for a moment he stares at the doors. He hasn't been here in a month. The grass has gotten way too long. It's nice, Sakura says. Suzuki doesn't answer. He walks up to the door, Naruto and Sakura following behind him, and he pulls out his keys to unlock it. You lock your door? Naruto asks. Sakura looks at the Jinhira key incredulously. You don't. Take your shoes off on the mat, Suzuki tells them, stepping inside and slipping off his own shoes. He switches on the light. Naruto, don't break anything. Hey! Naruto yells. Why just me? The house has become dusty in the month Suzuki has been away. Despite being the only one living there, and never having any visitors, he usually attempts to keep the place in shape. He hasn't moved anything since the massacre, and everything is still ordered the way his mother liked to keep it except the picture frames with his brother in them, which have been taken down. Sakura moves to examine one of the pictures still up on the mantle, one of his parents when they were younger. Is this your mom? She asks. She's really beautiful. She looks a lot like you. Naruto goes to look as well. Sasuke bites his tongue to stop himself from snapping at them not to touch. Enough, he says harshly. Let's just get my stuff and go. Sakura sets the frame back down carefully. Sakura and Naruto share a look they think he doesn't see before following him up the stairs. The three of them pack up his room quickly. Despite it not having any specific bad memories attached to it, it's still difficult for Sasuke to be there, remembering what occurred in the room almost directly below them. His senses play tricks on him, and sometimes he thinks he can smell the metallic scent of blood. Or hear screaming. The SCHTCK of a katana. Sakura and Naruto are mostly quiet. Even Naruto doesn't run his mouth, seeming to sense Sasuke's feelings without him needing to speak. They pack his clothes and weapons and other sparse belongings up into his backpack. At one point, Naruto is digging through his closet and steps on something. A sharp crunching is heard. Naruto swears under his breath. He steps back, looking over to Sasuke with wide eyes. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. The dark-haired boy walks over to where his teammate is standing. He looks down, and he freezes in place. There's a photograph on the ground, an old one, with years of dust covering it. The glass has broken, dozens of tiny cracks spider-webbing outwards. I'm sorry, Naruto says quietly. Sasuke doesn't respond. Slowly, he crouches down, picking up the wooden frame. He shakes the shards of glass away, revealing the picture beneath. It's him and Itachi. He looks around 4 years old, his elder brother 9 or 10. He's clinging to Itachi's back, his small arms wrapped around Itachi's neck. He's grinning widely at the camera, and Itachi is smiling too, his eyes light and happy. Sasuke stares down at the picture, Itachi's arms holding onto him by his legs, Sasuke's chin digging into his shoulder, and it feels like someone has punched the air from his chest. Sakura and Naruto both peer over to look at the picture. Sakura bites her bottom lip and doesn't speak. I didn't mean to, Naruto says again, his voice more hushed now. Sorry. Sasuke swallows. He tears his gaze away from the picture. His eyes are stinging, but it's only because of the dust. He blinks it away. Whatever. We're done here, let's go. Sakura and Naruto look at him for a moment longer, then turn back toward the bedroom door. On a split-second impulse, Sasuke pulls the picture from the frame and shoves it in the side pocket of the backpack. Sasuke hikes the backpack high on his shoulders, shutting the door behind him. They walk down the hall, and Sasuke doesn't look at Itachi's bedroom door as they pass it. It's been closed over 5 years now. So about you living with me, Naruto says. I'm not sharing the bed, so you're going to have to sleep on the floor. Sasuke rolls his eyes. Fine. But you're cleaning your entire room. I'm not sleeping on the floor if I can't see the floor. I told you, it isn't that bad. Oh, and no waking me up before 10 on the weekends. And no taking super long showers, because I don't have a lot of hot water. Also, stay away from my ramen, because if you eat any of it, I swear. You mean your disgusting cup noodles? I don't eat that crap. Crap? Oh, you better take that back right now, bastard. Naruto. Sasuke-kun. Can't the two of you ever stop? How do you expect to live together if you can't even get along? It's only for a week at most, Sasuke says. Just until I can get my own. Sasuke cuts himself off as the three of them step over the Uchiha district boundaries, back into the village street. He freezes, eyes catching a familiar figure across the street. Hey, Sakura says. Is that Kakashi-sensei? Naruto yells, waving wildly at the silver-haired man. He turns to Sasuke, nudging him, and says in a trying too hard to be casual voice, Look, Sasuke. It's Kakashi-sensei. Sasuke's heart picks up as the man begins walking toward him. He pins Naruto with an angry look. What did you do? Do? What do I mean? Naruto. Naruto sighs, quickly folding beneath Sasuke's irritated demeanor. Alright, fine. So I might have told him we would be here, and I might have told him he should come help with the moving. Suzuki feels an emotion akin to betrayal spark in his chest, though not quite as sharp. I can't believe you. You talked to him. Sakura says with a smile. What happened? Suzuki grits his teeth. I thought you were mad at him, he says, ignoring Sakura. Why would you invite him? I don't want him in my house. And we're already done getting my stuff. What did you think we were moving, my entire house? Naruto glares. Don't yell at me, asshole. Sakura-chan was right yesterday. I'm not saying you have to forgive him, because I don't even know what it was he was keeping from you, but you should at least talk to him. Suzuki's jaw tightens, and he prepares to snap back, but suddenly Kakashi is in front of them. Sakura elbows them both sharply in the ribs, turning to face their sensei with a smile. Kakashi-sensei, she says brightly. I didn't know you were coming. How have you been? Kakashi smiles beneath the mask. I'm good. Naruto told me this morning that Suzuki was going to be staying with him for a while. I thought I might be able to help. You're late, as always, Suzuki says coldly. We're already done, so we don't need you. Kakashi winces, looking visibly disappointed. Naruto glares at him pointedly. Talk to him, he mouths, jerking his head toward the Jounin in an obvious gesture. Suzuki glares back. No, he mouths, much more subtly. Naruto and Sakura trade glances with each other. They seem to communicate silently, without using words. They've been doing that a lot lately, and it's annoying. When did they learn to do it? When Suzuki was in a coma. Sakura grabs Naruto by the wrist. Well, we have to go, she says, a plastic smile on her face. Naruto and we have a date. Naruto yells, as Sakura flounders. We have a date. Come on, Sakura-chan. See you, Suzuki. Naruto drags Sakura away before Suzuki can attempt to protest, pulling her past Kakashi and across the street. A date. Suzuki hears her echo incredulously as they grow farther away. I panicked. And it's not like I'm sorry. No, please don't hit me. Their voices fade as their backs disappear, mingling with all the other villagers walking the streets that afternoon. Suzuki is left alone with Kakashi, standing in front of the abandoned compound. Idiots, he mutters. They're so obvious. Reluctantly, he lifts his gaze to look properly at his sensei. He has the immediate desire to drop it again. Kakashi's visible eye seems to see him, to strip him bare. Suzuki thinks Sakura was exaggerating a bit in the hospital when she said that Kakashi looked awful. But Suzuki will admit that he looks a bit worse for wear, more tired, and the usual slump to his shoulders is more pronounced. Suzuki feels his anger rise up again, seeing him. But he hasn't seen him since he banished him from his hospital room, and there's a sliver of guilt there as well. Naruto and Sakura are both right. Even if he can't forgive him, he can't just keep avoiding him either. I guess we should talk, Suzuki says, gripping the straps of his backpack tightly. I would like that, Kakashi says. If you're open to it. Suzuki nods. The two of them fall into step together, beginning to walk. For a few minutes, there's nothing but silence between them. He can feel Kakashi's gaze on him. He stares straight ahead, not knowing what to say. Suzuki, I'm sorry, Kakashi says finally. I shouldn't have kept the truth about the massacre from you. I know that you feel betrayed. Why did you? Suzuki asks abruptly, cutting the man off. Why didn't you tell me? Kakashi sighs. There were reasons. The top of which being that I was ordered. Orders, Suzuki says sharply, scoffing. I'm sick to death of Konoha's orders. Who are they to dictate what's right and wrong? To decide what I'm allowed to know about my own family. Suzuki feels his ire rise again rapidly, swirling in his chest, and his nails bite into the straps around his shoulders. It seems like everyone is manipulating him these days, whether that's controlling the information he receives or attempting to make his decisions for him. The third Hokage kept the truth from him about his family, let him go on wanting to kill his brother. Orochimaru was trying to manipulate him, to possess his power for himself. Kakashi kept silent, knowing how Suzuki might react. And Itachi. Itachi is the worst of them all. His brother does love him, Sasuke is sure of that now. But he plotted Sasuke's entire life out for him, not a hint of care as to what Sasuke himself would want. I'm so sick of everyone trying to control me. Kakashi compresses his lips at the words, looking down briefly. Sasuke expects a lecture. He isn't stupid, he knows he's being watched closely. Monitored for any signs of disloyalty. And Kakashi is nothing if not a loyal shinobi, just like Itachi is. But Kakashi surprises him. You're right, he says. You have a right to certain information. You have a right to know it and decide for yourself how you are going to react, without someone else making that choice for you. Sasuke looks at him in surprise. Then why did you keep it from me? Kakashi exhales slowly, looking forward. When you were in your coma, he says slowly. When you were trapped in your brother's genjutsu. I went into your head and attempted to pull you out. Do you remember? Sasuke thinks back but is forced to immediately pull away, as the memories threaten to overwhelm him. He shakes his head. The only thing he can remember is blood and screaming and Itachi's cold voice. Well, I was there. For just a moment. And I saw you. I saw you curled up in a corner on that floor, shaking and covering your ears. Kakashi's jaw tightens. I saw you. I couldn't get out of my head how fragile you looked. And when Tsunade told me the truth, I remembered again. I imagined telling you, but you already seemed so broken, and all could think about was how the knowledge would shatter you. Sasuke swallows, hearing the roughly spoken words. He looks away, unable to look at his sensei as they walk. It burns through him, the realization that Kakashi saw him like that. At his lowest moment, nothing more than a helpless child. I thought I was protecting you, Kakashi says. But Itachi thought the same thing, and look how that turned out. Sasuke bites his lip. The cut at his throat tingles, and Sasuke wonders how Kakashi would feel if he knew about it. If he knew keeping this secret almost resulted in Sasuke not standing next to him. He was trying to stop Sasuke from breaking, but it was the not knowing that almost succeeded in doing that exact thing. Sasuke looks at Kakashi, and suddenly, he can't bear the thought of doing that. He truly does look horribly, terribly guilty, and how can Sasuke burden him with the knowledge of what his actions nearly caused? And so, Sasuke makes a decision. Because looking into Kakashi's eyes, he sees something that's very familiar to him. Something that he's also seen in his own eyes. I understand, he says. I don't forgive you, but I understand. Kakashi stops walking, turning to look at him. There's a moment of silence, where he eyes Sasuke uncertainly, as if unsure what to do. Then, he places a hand on Sasuke's shoulder, pulling him forward slightly so he falls against his chest. Sasuke's eyes widen in shock, and he isn't sure what to do. It isn't at all like the way Naruto and Sakura embraced him yesterday. It can hardly even be called a hug, just an arm thrown lightly around him, his forehead pressing against Kakashi's vest. It's stilted and awkward, and it's over before Sasuke can even process it, Kakashi stepping quickly back out of his space. Kakashi clears his throat awkwardly. Right. Just know that, I'm here for you. For whatever you need. His hand hovers above Sasuke's shoulder, falling there for a moment before dropping back down. Sasuke, still processing the horribly inexperienced attempt at affection, just nods. Thank you. It isn't all okay, of course. In fact, most of everything still isn't okay at all. He's still angry and hurt and betrayed, and that hasn't gone away. He still doesn't know how he feels about Konoha, about the Hittite on his forehead that seems to burn against his skin. He doesn't know where he and Itachi stand, if they'll ever stand anywhere, if Sasuke will ever be able to look at him without remembering everything he put him through. He still closes his eyes and sees visions of death. He still smells blood in the air, still hears the screams. But Kakashi holds his hand out, offering to take the heavy backpack from his shoulders. And after a moment of contemplation, Sasuke lets him. The two of them are walking again, in the direction of Naruto's apartment, and Sasuke asks about training. Kakashi responds, and it almost feels normal. Things aren't alright. But for the first time in over 5 years, Sasuke feels like maybe they don't have to be. Maybe that's okay. 3 months later, Obito Uchiha stands alone on the parapet of the Akatsuki's tower. He stares out at a Megakure's horizon as the sun slowly disappears from view, resting the drink in his hand on the edge of the balcony. Damn that Itachi Uchiha, he thinks, raising the glass to sip at the amber liquid. The alcohol burns pleasantly as it goes down his throat. His mask is resting on the balcony's edge next to his right hand. If he had normal skin and muscles on that side of his body, then his knuckles would have been showing bone. Taking Itachi into the Akatsuki was a risk. Obito had known that from the start. His loyalty to Konoha was unshakable, and his mind refused to be poisoned by the Akatsuki's ideals. Still, he was a threat that was safer to have next to them instead of actively working against them. Except now, the exact thing that Obito feared would happen has. The boy's love for his brother has caused him to break from his plans, and now he is back in Konoha's hands, no doubt giving them every scrap of intelligence he has. Kisame claims to have killed him. Obito doesn't believe him for a second. Killed? Not Itachi. Obito knows him, and he would never be so careless. When Itachi Uchiha dies, it will be because he plans to, and not a moment before. The only possible good thing about Itachi's defection is that Obito doesn't have to worry about keeping his promise anymore. The Akatsuki is now free to attack the Leaf Village and go after the Nine Tails, except that it's too soon and they aren't ready. Launching an assault on Konoha now, when they are still recovering from the Sands invasion, would be smart, but it also draws too much attention. Attention they aren't ready for. The Akatsuki is a secret organization. They aren't at the correct stage in their plans where they can afford being at the forefront of things, the five nations seeing them as a proper threat. But now, with Itachi spilling all their plans, they can't afford to wait either. The longer they wait to move, the more time Konoha will have to prepare. Obito will have to accelerate the plan. But Konoha will retaliate, backed by the other hidden villages. One-tailed beast, hosted in the body of a small child, will not be enough power to hold them at bay. They will need to start collecting the tailed beasts. The Ichibai is in Suna, and their village is a mess after their failed takeover. Currently leaderless. He will have Nagato send Sasori and Deidara. It should be easy for them to. Obito freezes the moment he senses a chakra approaching him, and not one he recognizes. He sets his drink back down on the ledge, returning his mask to his face and turning around. Who's there? A figure steps further into the room. Obito remains on the open balcony, watching them. They are slight in stature, their face concealed by a dark hood. Your subordinate let me in, the figure says. The voice is male. I told them I wished to speak to the leader of the Akatsuki. Obito scowls beneath the mask. Which one of those idiots let this stranger just stroll into their headquarters? Most likely Haiden, that damn lunatic. You're not welcome here, Obito says. I don't know how you came to be here, or why they would let you in, but I'm not. I told them I wished to speak to their true leader. Obito stills. Slowly, he focuses on the man, now giving him his full attention. Did you now? The man steps forward further, more into the light. He throws back his hood, revealing pale hair. His skin is pasty and scaly, and one of his eyes. Obito's face twists at the sight of familiar golden eyes, when he recognizes the despicable chakra of that traitorous snake. Orochimaru. He was my master, yes, the young man replies. But he is no more. I assure you, I come to you now not of his will, but of my own. It takes Obito a moment to place the name. Kabuto Yakushi. Sasori's informant. Kabuto inclines his head. He has clearly been busy since the months since his master's demise. Even without the physical alterations, his entire essence reeks of Orochimaru. It's unnatural and sickening. Your own will, are you? Obito echoes. Given your appearance, I doubt that very much. Well then, Kabuto Yakushi. What exactly is it that you think I can do for you? You've got it wrong, Kabuto says. His lips stretch into a smile. It's not what you can do for me. It's what I can do for you. Obito Uchiha. Check the description for the links to the author.